Welcome back, Statliners, to another episode of Bats and Stats, presented by ScoutTheStatline.com. It's looking a little bit different here. I don't have my little compadre, Ross, as always, but he'll be here. He'll be here. I myself, Brian, as always, X.com at Brian59044. We got Doc Holliday, Darren Eisenhauer. Thank you for coming back, my friend. And we have a new guest. We have a new guest and a new member of ScoutTheStatline.com, Matt Morris. He's going to be doing some articles for us, and I'm pumped that he's on the pod tonight. We had a long conversation before we even got on here, so hopefully that kind of comes back into the fold of the pod. We're just going to chat tonight. We're going to chat, and we have obscure names tonight. Matt, please introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about it, and we'll go from there.
Yes, Brian, thank you so much. Absolutely thrilled to be here tonight. My name is Matt, as Brian had alluded to. I've been doing 2 podcasts for about 3 years. Have not necessarily had the success I had hoped for the first, month when we were like, we'll have 1 million followers and we'll have this great show. But we've loved doing our 2 shows. One's a general sports podcast where we kind of break down, weekly events and big topics, and really dive into a fan's perspective for fans. And we've actually recently just decided to switch over. We're going to start to tell stories based on organizational creation, individuals and organizations that have made really big changes, historical memories. One big thing we wanted to break down in the future is the CC Sabathia trade to Milwaukee and just the overall storyline that was, because I'm from Milwaukee. That was one of the greatest half seasons as a baseball fan I ever had. And we really wanted to get to the value of what the story means to a sports fan. And then I also do a fantasy baseball podcast, which we have done for about 3 years now. I think the max listeners we had was 21, so a lot of success. And we've decided to go more video now. So we're very excited. That's kind of starting in the last 2 weeks, and we're going to start ramping up marketing for that. But my big thing is being with great people like yourselves and being a part of a great community and just having a really good time. Like you said, talking about players that we enjoy and we want to get their names out there. That's really my overall view on why I do this.
For sure. Now, Matt, you mentioned that you're in Vegas.
Yep.
What is the AAA affiliate in Vegas?
Is it the 51s right now?
51s? Okay.
Is it the 51s in Summerlin? I went to a game actually last year. First minor league game I'd ever been to. It was for the 4th of July. My wife loves the fireworks show they do. And naturally I was like, well, I'm okay with that. I like baseball a little bit. And I absolutely loved it. And I was kind of upset that was the first game I had been to. Now, I'm concerned if the A's choose to play there for a couple of years, because I think, their part-time catcher may have 70 home runs. It's a small ballpark, and elevation here is high. The ball jumps, to say the least.
Okay. Well, I'm seeing here they're actually now. I didn't know this. They're called the Las Vegas Aviators.
They are the Aviators,
which is that's the team. As you said, until they get their the first quadruple A team in Vegas. Sorry to any A's fans out there. Better times can only be coming.
Did you see this week the owner? I think the owner's either president or GM came out. It wasn't Billy Beane, and he said we expect to spend about $160 million in payroll a year in Las Vegas. My first thought was, I will believe it when I see it.
Gosh, yeah, no doubt. What do you think So I've been to Vegas a billion times. I know the Golden Knights were just like this huge hit in Vegas. I don't know how the Raiders have done. It looks good. How do you think baseball is going to fare in Vegas? Do you think it's got to be solid, right?
It's going to be hard. So the Knights did such a great job because they were a startup franchise. They had the startup draft. This was a new organization with no history. It was Vegas's team, and the city took to it.
They won. They won early.
Yes. Like the way the general manager, the president, the owner decided to go about putting together that team was correct. He knew immediate success would lead to long-term success, from ticket sales to fandom to everything. And the Raiders, I'll be honest, there are very few Raider fans actually out here. They do well because in the Packer game that I went to this year, when they played the Raiders, is a great representation of that. you have traveling fans that will jump on a plane and say, absolutely, I'll go watch my team in Vegas. Or you'll have, 100,000 Packer fans in Las Vegas, let's say, you'll have enough of them go to the game. So we sell out, but it hasn't built a culture like the Knights have.
Yeah.
And I'm concerned for the A's because they already have a stigma on the organization, the way they do business, the way they scout players, the way they pay players. And when you come to Vegas and you have that mentality, I do not think this city will take well to cheap behavior. That it may be unfair to say that, but you have to at least do things the right way. And I don't know that I can say they're doing that.
Yeah. No,
I was at the Vegas airport just yesterday. It's true story. Yeah, I was should have said hi. Huh?
Did you toss some money in a machine and test your luck?
No, I tossed $10 at a coffee.
That's about right. Yeah.
That's what I was gonna say. Yeah, everything's gonna cost a little bit more there. No, they're gonna.
You got a deal, honestly.
Yeah.
It definitely wasn't Jimmy Butler's coffee. I think he's selling his cups for like $50 a cup right now in Miami.
This was coffee bean and tea leaf, a little West Coast specialty, a little Southwest.
Yes, good old coffee bean. The finest from LA.
That's awesome. So I'm here. Everything that you said really kind of made a pop in my brain because I don't think it's going to go well. I think that they're going to have to do a complete rebrand of the Oakland A's. It's going to have to get away from the A's name. It's going to have to get away from the colors. It's going to have to do everything, in my opinion. I just don't see it being a huge draw right away. I think it can be. They have a long road ahead.
Well, did you guys see the news today about Baltimore selling to a private equity group?
Mm-hmm.
I read a little bit about it. The actual owner is an older gentleman who has fallen, under poor health conditions and has dementia. So it sounds like the estate was passed off to his son. And the son is the one who made comments this year about, well, we can't pay all of these young guys when they become great, which the baseball world was very unhappy with, and probably rightfully so. You're going to break up Jackson Holliday and Hurston Kierstead and, all the names we love. And then to see that they were selling today with the approval coming next week in Orlando, that was awesome because I was like, good, get private equity in there. We saw the last time big money took over an organization, which was Atlanta, and they extended everybody. Now that was public money. This is private. It may operate differently, but at least it's in hands that don't make comments regarding frugality. I think the same thing will have to happen here in Las Vegas if the A's do end up coming, which for some reason is still in doubt. I don't know how, but I'm not smart enough to understand those details. But I think he will probably move the team here. He will probably sit on it for 2 years, and then he will probably sell for 2 times the value that he would have sold the Oakland franchise for. And then hopefully someone buys it that wants to win.
Man, that terrifies me. I did not hear that news. That terrifies me for the Baltimore Orioles because they have probably top 3 futures in the MLB right now. I think you go Reds, Diamondbacks, Orioles, not in any order. Those 3 are on a freaking rocket ship to be in massive franchise.
Well, I think crisis averted potentially is what the news today is.
Yeah.
The quote was from a while ago, and then today they got these new owners who, we don't necessarily know what they're saying yet, but they seem to be pretty, wealthy fellas, and there's only up to go from. You can only go up from, hey, we're not going to be spending to keep our stars.
I'm trying to find the direct quote. Do you have it, Doc, from what he actually said? No.
It was basically what you said. I was reading about this actually today, and there was a couple of Boston Red Sox fans in my replies, and they were like, well, one guy was like, well, maybe not, maybe they won't spend because maybe. Then afterwards,
terrified,
afterward, he's like, honestly, I'm a Red Sox fan and I'm terrified. So,
please, can they not sell? Can we not approve this deal because we want Jackson Holliday?
Yeah, well, and so that's the thing. I mean, I'm not these ultra wealthy, really well, doing great financially guys. I'm not that guy. I don't know what to think. But if I was that guy, I think I would want a legacy. And if you're basically being handed, well, you're buying, but you're getting handed a nucleus that has the chance to take down 2 of the most historic franchises in all of sports for quite some time. Like, if done right, the Baltimore Orioles could run the AL East for who knows how long, at least 5 to 10 years. That's insane. That's a great position. Could be the golden era of the franchise. So that's a great legacy if these owners care like that.
Well, and Brian, I brought up the podcast earlier, the Just Baseball show, and their second show, the name eludes me at the moment, the Call Up. They had a great comment this week. I started their show last night on the Baltimore Orioles, and they had said, which didn't ring a bell to me until they said it, they couldn't remember the last time a team had 3 number 1 overall prospects on the same team, on the field at the same time, pre-arbitration. And when they said the pre-arbitration part, my mind just exploded because it's Rutschman, Gunnar Henderson, and now it will be Jackson Holliday. The only team that I could think of that possibly put together similar talent would have been Harper, Soto, and Strasburg, all at different points of their arbitration, rookie deals, and then obviously the loss of Harper. But other than those 2 teams, I can't remember the last time you had 3 number 1 potential players on the same team.
And I mean, Grayson Rodriguez.
Yeah.
And you got Kobe Mayo, which, he's on the verge. He's probably not going to get there before he gets up. But Samuel Basallo.
Yeah.
Like, they're insane. It's an insane time, and they're just still making great picks as far as I can tell in this recent draft. So, yeah, man, it's a crazy time, and yeah, let's see it for the sport. Let's see it, Baltimore. I'm no Orioles fan or anything, but I'm excited for you.
Yeah, honestly, I can't think because Soto never made it to 1. I think Soto topped out at like 15, but they called him up so damn early.
Yeah.
God, I was going to the Twins direction, but it wasn't even close. I was thinking Buxton, Dillman Young, and then Royce Lewis, but that's such a huge time gap that there's no way there.
The Brewers would have been when I just think of now, like the Reds, the Brewers from the Fielder, Braun days, Ricky Weeks, but they were never number 1s.
Yeah.
Ellie De La Cruz, right? The Reds have like a bunch of guys from 5 to 50. And I think the Reds organization is probably second to the Orioles in what we're going to see over the next 5 years, right? Like, Ellie's got to hit, but if Ellie hits, oh my goodness. I don't even know what to project if he actually can pull out 90th percentile projections. It would be amazing. It would be Ronald Acuna-esque.
Yeah. That's wild. That's a great stat. I'd love to actually hear that conversation. I think I'm going to have to pull that up because, yeah, you're right. It is just a wild amount of talent that is cycling through the Orioles. You guys mentioned the Reds. I mentioned the Diamondbacks. I think the Diamondbacks are on a heater as well. What a great time in baseball. You don't have, and I apologize to some fans that I'm going to offend here, but you don't have the Yankees. You don't have the Red Sox. You don't have, you still have them. Don't get me wrong, but you don't have the Atlanta Braves. You don't have these guys that are on the top of the prospect list, but you have them with these small market teams, which I'm enjoying the crap out of. I really am. I would love to see new dynasties in baseball, and I think it's coming.
Well, I think we're actually in this, like, I don't know, maybe I'm crazy. Maybe it's recency bias. It's a new phrase these days. But I feel like, in football, we're looking back not too long ago now. We're like, dang, did we just miss something here? That was like, we had the Rodgers, Brady, Roethlisberger, Manning, like Breeze, and now we're looking at how hard it is to fill those shoes. And it's a different sport, but I can't help but feel like with this, I think it's a lot to do with these new incentives of the Rookie of the Year, and there's actually other incentives beyond the Rookie of the Year. There's other things, like if the player finishes X, Y, or Z in certain voting, or gets an All-Star appearance, within their first amount of years in the game. It seems like there's a youth movement that's never quite happened in recent times, and they're not just coming up, but they're coming up and killing it to the point where it's like, if you're not Gunnar Henderson, if you're not Corbin Carroll, people want to call you a bust right away. So, Jordan Lawler, for instance. But yeah, a guy came up and just struggled like a normal rookie, normal 20-year-old, and so it's like, the guy's done. So anyway, I like to think we're entering a golden era of young guns kind of lighting the game up.
Well, and I think we're seeing it in a lot of sports. I've had this conversation a few times over the year at the restaurant with random people, and we're starting to see youth American sports not yet rival European soccer, where these kids are taken out of their homes and at 7 years old, and their families are brought into the soccer compound, and they're trained for the next 10 years to become the next Ronald Messi. Wow, I just said Ronald Messi, but point stance. We are starting to see youth sports in America really individual and specialized. When I grew up, we were still playing basketball and football and baseball. Now it is only baseball. It is only soccer. It is only football. We start you from 5, and by the time you're 18, you've had so much more repetition that we're seeing the degradation on the arms, right? We're seeing more arm injuries. We are seeing younger players put up better batting averages with better power at younger ages. Well, yeah, because they've been playing 2 or 3 times the amount of baseball that kids just 10 years ago were doing. And the competition is also then better because we're playing more. And then you look at the actual financial aspect of baseball, teams like the A's, teams like the Brewers, teams like the Royals, who are incentivized to keep their payroll low because they are choosing TV contract budget systems. Of course, they're going to go young. And then finally, you have the explosion of real international talent. Doc, we just got done with our first year player draft. There were some international guys that I had absolutely no idea existed, and I thought I did a decent job scrubbing. And that just goes to show you, when you read these profiles, there's not just 2 guys anymore to get excited about. This year, there might be 15 to 30, and the 31st might be the best player of them all. Yeah.
And did Japan have a big weight on this in the last year? Japan beating America, in the World Baseball Classic. I think it did. It opened my eyes up. I know that it opened me up a lot more, because I was thinking that Japan KBO, they were AA numbers for me. When I looked at their stats, I was going to equivalate them to AA stats, because I just didn't think that they were on the major league level. They come out and they beat the pros. Yes, we didn't have a lot of our superstars, but a lot of them were there, and they beat us. So I think that has a big pull on the international ball.
Well, I'm going to go ahead and just get ahead of any viewers who are just shaking their heads and really mad at you and thinking we're all ignorant right now. You said Japan, and then you said KBO. KBO is Korea.
My fault.
But I know what you're saying, though, because Korea, I mean, it's the same kind of deal, though. It's the same kind of deal in that there are international superstars showing up on our doorstep that maybe at a rate. I think there's something there. I mean, when you started saying that, I started thinking something a little different. I'm like, maybe we're starting to wake up and take a bit more, like, don't stop taking it for granted, right? Like, you're not guaranteed to be the best. There's some competition coming in, and when done right, when there's real competition, it's just going to elevate everyone. So I'm excited, man. Yeah, it's a great time for baseball. And man, you're getting all fired up. It's February. We're almost in March. We're getting closer. People might be listening to this podcast. They probably want to hear us talk about some prospects eventually. But man, we got some, by the way.
We do have some good ones.
Yeah.
What you guys just talked about reminded me of the Dream Team. After the Dream Team's dominance in basketball, and you had the U.S. kind of not take it seriously for a while, right? Until we had to get the troops back together and really show the world that, American basketball players are still the dominant force. You saw 20, 30 years of the world starting to catch up. 20, 30 years where the world started to beat the American teams, and it really started to take on in different international markets. And then you had the emergence of Yao Ming. That was a massive piece for basketball and basketball's revenue stream into China. And I have to just hope and think that what Ohtani is currently doing will trump what Yao Ming did for basketball, because it shows other international countries that $700 million potentially could be on the table. Roki Sasaki possibly now coming over next year. I mean, we've kind of talked about that a little bit here and there this offseason. There's a lot of contract detail that needs to be worked out before he comes over. But if you talk about three of the best Japanese players, the three best Japanese players on the same American Los Angeles team, what that can do for international growth. In 20 years, this could be an international sport, not just an American, Dominican, Puerto Rican, Japanese sport, but working into Europe, and that would be beautiful.
Yep. Yep. And I apologize about what I said. I was linking Asia together. I know it's a separate island. I'm not ignorant.
I was messing with you, man. Hey, if we have any listeners that are still listening and following us after the inebriation episode, I think their standards are low. So
for sure. With the inebriation comment that you just mentioned, we got to get into beers. Mm-hmm. We got to get into the drinks of the pod. I got to change that name. So I'm going to go first here, and I got a 6-pack of Firestone Mind Haze IPA. This guy is from Firestone Walker Brewing Company. I've never heard of this. It was at the local convenience store. Super excited about it. It is out of California's Central Coast. So tropical hazy IPA.
They have a main beer. It is 818 or 805. So the area code. I kid you not, it sold like hotcakes. It was the go-to in California.
This Firestone?
So yeah, their main brand is called Firestone. I want to say it's a pale ale, but everything they produce is great.
Okay, got a nice pour. Okay, it's gonna be a good podcast. I mean, that's a pretty nice.
So this is a 6.2%er, horsepower, as we like to call it.
Doc, you got the good stuff. What are you drinking?
Yeah, I mean, IPA is like the one kind of beer I don't go for. I say it every time, but so I got a few things going on here. I'm just like I'm a mess, I got a cigar. It's I'm not sure if you can see in the lighting there. Oh, we got Ross just in time for the drinks of the pod. And I was doing. I just came back to Tombstone. I'm showing off my Wyatt Earp cigar. I smoked a Doc earlier. Smoke signals in Tombstone. Go to Tombstone. It's a fun place. Got my shot glass from Tombstone, and that features a local Indiana. You can't see that well either, but it's nice. Look at this nice bottle. It's a little bit dusty because this one's from the floor. I used a decanter. Like I feel like I'm like doing I'm doing a Gallagher show or a Carrot Top. I'm just pulling all these props out. It's like, what else is over here? Watermelon? Anyway, the best thing to me about bourbon, and this one is 110 proof, so watch out.
That's bourbon and it's clear?
No, man, this is an empty bottle.
Oh, I was like, holy cow, you're drinking moonshine.
It's in here because I'm trying to be a little classy. I'm trying to mix that in with the red neckery. This is an old one from the floor. This beautiful bourbon was produced with corn and 21% rye, aged in new charred oak barrels for 2 years, complex and rich with vanilla, nutmeg, clove, and toasted pecan notes. Fantastic finish with lingering hints of baking spices, or as my wife would say, gasoline is what it tastes like. But
okay, the real question though, did you get the decanter as a wedding gift?
I don't think so. I think my wife just got it for me because she saw me watching westerns.
We did a nice house clean this week. And I go downstairs, everything's put away, and there's an empty decanter on our kitchen counter. And I say, what are we doing this? This should be put away, right? Like, it has a home. She's like, oh, no, it looks really pretty. It was our wedding gift. And I said, so we're using it as decor now. And she's like, absolutely. And I'm like, okay, I can't argue with you. You will win. But I guess this is our new decoration for the kitchen. So I was just kind of testing the data there, Doc, to see where we were at.
Testing the data. I love it. Yeah, no, this is great stuff, man. This one wins awards across America, for real. It's a high quality bourbon, so I'm having a good time with y'all right now.
Nice. Matt, I'd like to hear about, what'd you call it? Fire spirit?
So I'm, if there's like a young man's starter kit, even though I'm in my 30s, I think I'm kind of following into that stereotype tonight. Doc, I don't have a classy cigar. I have wonderful nicotine Zyn pouches. Again, very basic. So here we are. And then, to make it better, I have the wonderful, very bad for you energy drink, but it's the Rain Storm. So it's the less potent of the energy drinks. That's very fine. And then if that's not enough, I go with my very traditional Midwestern addiction to soda. So no alcohol, but I'm fully loaded.
Nice. I'm glad you brought up the Zyn. I do Velos.
Yeah.
Maybe we can get a sponsor for Velo.
Listen, if we just push both of them, maybe we can get them to compete and we can all retire and just do this permanently.
I'm starting to doubt the Midwestern though. You've been away too long because you called it soda and not pop.
Hey, parts of us say pop. I have always gone soda, which I was shunned for that.
Ross, do you got an alcoholic beverage, or are you just gonna pop in here, or do you even want to say hi to anybody?
The answer is no.
Apparently not.
I want to say hi to anyone.
Yeah.
I want to say hi to Matt. This is the first time we've had Matt on. I mean, I want to say hi to everybody. But this is impressive, Matt. You got like a setup going on here. Look at this, the microphone and the stuff in the background. That is like putting my little space to shame. Which I've got nothing back here.
I have a supportive
But I am
wife.
wearing a dress shirt tonight.
Nice.
Yeah, that's awesome. But to complement my dress shirt, I've got a Malbec that I'm drinking tonight.
Oh, nice.
And this is the finest Malbec that you can get in a box. So we're all pretty eclectic tonight, I think, with our drinks. So
This is a diverse group in only one way, and that's the stuff we're drinking.
Doc, you're gonna have to keep the persona you have, though. Keep us on our toes, because the cigar and the whiskey, it keeps us classy, as my Zin embarrasses us. So, and we gotta be a group here. We gotta bring something to the table.
It's true. Before we hit the prospects, I mentioned this to Matt before, but little Montana story time. It was negative 61 degrees a week and a half ago on Thursday. And today it was 60 degrees. So we have a 120 degree jump here in Montana. I just wanted to, a little story time for you guys. But as we do this, we're going to jump into our obscure prospects. The majority of these guys are completely obscure. You're going to recognize some of these names. There's some good ones on here, but there's ones on here, and I'll be honest with you, there's names on here that, as I looked at the name and then as I looked at the stats, I went, why is nobody talking about these people? We have, what do you think, 13 of these guys? Roughly 13 of these guys that we're going to talk about tonight, and it's impressive what's going to happen. Ross, since you're coming in late, geez, we're going to start with Matt's compile of 4 guys that he's got here. So we're going to be starting with Jordan Beck tonight.
And starting with Docs.
Oh, I apologize. It's Docs. Starting with Docs, and his first one is Jordan Beck, and he's with the AA affiliate with the Colorado Rockies. He is 6'3", 225 pounds. He's 22 years old. He's playing right field. He was drafted in 2022 by the Rockies, picked 38 overall out of College, Tennessee. 2023 saw his numbers look as 487 at bats between 2 different affiliates, high A and double A, 271 average, 364 on base percentage, 503 slugging, on base plus slugging 867, with 25 home runs, 20 stolen bases, only got caught 5 times. He strikes out at a high clip, 142 strikeouts, but he compiles that with 73 walks. Jordan Beck, fellas. Jordan Beck is a name that should start shooting up lists. I apologize. Other than that strikeout percentage, I think we're all going to agree with this.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm just coming in here guns blazing, knowing that Brian doesn't like Rockies prospects. So.
Oh, I hate them.
Well, pitchers, I get you. Batters, come on, baby. They don't even have to be that good. Just get it up there. Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. I don't even know if he's going to shoot up lists. And by the way, you're welcome, audience, because I saw the other names that are coming. You actually might have heard of Jordan Beck. I was like, okay, let's go with someone a bit more in the less psychopath non-30 teamer realm here. But so I mean, I just love this guy's upside, and it's like no one's talking about him. Even someone else, like I was listening to a great podcast. I'll shout him out because I like him. The Toolshed guys. Yeah, they're like, oh, this guy, I love this guy. No one really talks about him that much. Jordan Beck. And then they moved on. I'm like, well, you didn't do it either. So we're doing it. We're talking about him. We all love him. Yeah, I see the concern with the strikeouts, and that's what we're going to have to pay attention to. He's one of those college guys who, they're not rushing him up right away, so they can get old kind of quick. He's not that old. But he did have his age 22 season, and he finished off at Double-A. Where, it's interesting. I see a little bit of if I'm going to dream here. I'm going to dream on Gunnar Henderson a little bit, just because he's got that a little bit of strikeouts going on, but he's getting on base enough. Yep. It's one of those profiles. He's hitting the ball hard. In 126 games this last year, 25 home runs, 20 stolen bases, and he's not getting caught that much when he's stealing either. So this is a guy who's clearly exhibiting 2020 upside. He's 6'3", he's a big guy, and he's playing in Coors. It should be higher. It should be, in my opinion, I'm going to be doing a top 100. I'm hoping he cracks my top 50 so I can not be such a hypocrite, but I think he could. I think he could be a top 50 because he's not that far up. He's in Double-A. He's going to Coors. He's everything I just said. And, and frankly, this is a stat that, us stat heads, us gurus, whatever you want to call us, losers, we don't like RBIs because it's not a predictor. We know this, but I am a classic kind of guy, and I'm not going to bank on that, but I like when a guy can knock in runs. It is something when guys are on base. He got 91 RBIs last year, in 126 games. It's like, it means something. It kind of helps. And hopefully Colorado can give him a guy or two on base. That'll help. But yeah, I just think this guy's kind of, no one's talking about him really. I think if you do hear about him, it is what it is. I like him. He's cool. But it's like he's going to have a path there. Something tells me Chris Bryant will be around forever in the outfield. So we'll see, man. It'll be a lot of fun.
Doc, his swing, I just tossed it in our private chat here for you guys to take a look if you want, because I haven't been able to look at his swing mechanics until you brought him up. And it's almost identical to Nolan Arenado early in his career. Very loose with the bat, very loose with the shoulders, has a leg kick. But when he comes set, it's very beautiful. I think the swing has got me in. He's one of those guys, Sterling Thompson as well, for the same organization. Yanquiel Fernandez. There's so many guys to keep an eye on for the Rockies because of the offensive profile. I just haven't had a chance to look at him. Doc, great job. This swing is gorgeous.
Yeah, I just watched the video of it. For anybody listening, it's MLB.com video, Jordan Beck solo home run, and it's easy power. Like he didn't put anything behind that. That was all wrists and hands, man.
Yeah. That's a great profile.
Yeah, and shout out to Upper Beck on Twitter. Ironically enough, a guy named Beck was recommending Beck. And it was like a while ago, and I hadn't heard of him, and I looked him up. I saw his stats, I saw his profile. I'm like, yeah, okay, I'm planting a flag here. And you can get him cheap. You can still get him kind of cheap. Yep. Just see what happens. Yeah, strikeouts could be a problem, but as much as he's 22. Well, he's still. That's like a weird age, right? It's like you're on the verge. You stick around for a couple more years, you're an older prospect. But where he's at right now, there's time to still work out the kinks.
Ross, you got anything on Beck?
Just getting caught up on that video myself, so sorry I was a little behind, but
it's okay.
Yeah,
I'll go ahead.
Great counting stats. Agreed on the Gunnar Henderson upside. It's a really interesting comp. Of course, Gunnar Henderson's in the major leagues and he's younger, so there's that. Beck is still 22 now, though, so it's not like he's on the old end of that age 22 season. So that's interesting. Scout the Statline is a little skeptical about how well the bat will translate as from a hit tool perspective. So that's something I think to watch, and cutting down on the strikeouts would make a massive difference, clearly. So
yes.
This year is, in my opinion, probably make or break whether this guy's going to be an impact player or not. But definitely an interesting one, and somebody that you can get pretty easily now. I'm really intrigued that you see him as potentially a top 50 guy. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I think so, man. There's too much upside.
The big one that scares, the big one that scares me, Rockies in the past, and this can be changed very easily. They do not like their prospects. They will let them sit down there and they will stew.
Tovar. Debunked.
That's about it, man. In the last 20 years.
From what I understand, Beck plays a decent outfield. So yeah, that might be the difference for them, because in your defense, Tovar, from what I understand, is a pretty smooth, silky defender there, short. So
yeah, well, Brian and I have gone rounds on this, and my thought is if they're good enough, they'll play. Sure. I think we've seen a lot of marginal guys that like they may be impact major league players when you see them coming up, and they don't quite make that transition. To me, those are the fall offs. Those are the guys that struggle to secure much playing time. But if they deserve it, they'll figure out a way to make it happen. Mm-hmm. That's my take on it.
With this, I know Doc's all in. He's a go get him. Ross, I think he might be on the borderline. Matt, what do you think? Is he a go get him?
I think I'm happy to engage in talks in dynasty leagues because, Doc, you brought up a good point. The value, I think, is there because there are so many other names. Mm-hmm. I think, if I'm maybe correct, Sterling Thompson is the one that people are really pushing right now. I mentioned Yankeel's name. You have Amador, and then you have the number of international guys entering this system that I really like. Their scout just won Scout of the Year. I think those names help drive that value down. And I'm willing to take a shot on a guy that has a swing like that. Yes, there's concerns with the strikeouts. That's something we really worry about because it can tank a profile. Ross, I think you're right. Make or break is true. But I think what you're going to acquire him for is probably something you would have cut anyways, or maybe it's a reliever that gets 12 holds that you can get rid of and find on the waiver wire. So because of the price, I'd absolutely go get him.
And I'll just add on that one real quick is I did go get him in our 30-teamer, Matt.
Did you?
Right before you joined. It was one of my first deals. This guy just likes trading prospects, shifting them around this other GM. Now it was an even better deal. I had Michael Bush, and
okay.
It was LA Michael Bush, so there's a little bit less value there. But I got Beck and a throw-in, which is actually on my list here. I won't spoil it yet, but I got Beck and the throw-in from Michael Bush in LA. We'll see how that goes now, because I do love the opportunity for Bush. But I mean, frankly, I was delighted to get that value.
Okay, who's the throw-in? You got to enlighten.
He's on the list. We're gonna
talk. Okay, all right. So here's my thoughts. I think Matt's spot on with the comment about the value. If you can get him at the right price, absolutely. I wouldn't give up a top 100 guy for him personally. But if you're talking about 150 range, I mean, if you can do that,
where my Michael Bush would have been back, probably outside the top 100. Just at this point.
Yeah, I mean, depends on where you're looking. I've seen some places that have him real high, like up around 50 range.
I think he's back in it. I think he's back in it with the move. That was just no one knew. I guess he's got to be 28 years old, rotting away.
Yeah.
Let's keep it in that zone, fellas. Let me hear those trade comments, Matt. I loved hearing a 12-hold guy for a Jordan Beck.
Well, and that was a big thing I talked all offseason about. Doc invited me to join that 30-man that he just referenced, and trying to figure out what you have a surplus of if you're going to rebuild. It usually tends to be like 2 or 3 superstars that you have to leverage for a huge package. And then a bunch of guys that you're like, well, I can't cut them, but I have no use for them. And those are the guys, those mid-tier relievers. I call them John Means as a starting profile, because it's like, well, John Means to a competitive team in roto or categories has value for ratios and for innings, hopefully after Tommy John surgery. Maybe I'll move John Means for a top 100 guy. Or maybe I'll move a Paul Sewald with that, role in question for a Beck, right? Like if you really like Beck, I don't have a problem with trading Sewald for him. Yeah, you could miss and Beck could never make the majors or be a platoon guy, but Sewald's got maybe a couple years left, maybe 10 saves, maybe 15. It's all identifying the league and your surplus.
Good God, that's a great take.
Yeah, agreed.
Jesus. Thanks for coming on, man.
I'm in too many dynasty leagues. Doc, I joked with you. I think I'm over 20 now. It's a problem. I love this so much. Mm-hmm. And Doc, I commented to you, like, I was in shock of what you did to your roster. Like, I want you to show the guys at some point because it's incredibly impressive. I don't have the ability because I just stretched myself too thin. And when I saw what you did, I was like, I don't know that I'll ever be able to do those kind of moves. I mean, you completely rebuilt your entire system, and then your draft picks did help, but it really props everything up.
Well,
you blew it up, Doc?
It was blown up.
Yes, it was.
You walk into the house, you're, what the heck's going? As everything's falling apart. Literally, so this was a 30-teamer. Without going too much into it, this is another podcast, I think. But thank you for the compliment. But yeah, this was a 30-teamer. My first ever 30-teamer. My biggest before was I think 12. Like this was it. This is it.
Yeah.
I'm like I'm going in the deep end, and so I think maybe go all in and just I'm going to rework this. My condolences, rest in peace. But there was literally a dead player on my team. Just way deep down in the farm. And I'm like because this guy just took over a team and he started the league and he dropped out immediately. It's a paid league, so I don't get it. But anyway,
Did you say he started it?
He started it the year before. No, he didn't start the league. He was part of the opening guys. And so my second best prospect out of 30 prospects was Michael Bush, I believe. The guys who are still in the minors. And I got him. So I kind of just did stuff like that. Like, okay, Beck and someone else, someone else, this guy and someone else. And then with this, actual MLB players, I'm like, give me a few guys, And so, I'll talk to you about it sometime. But the next player we're going to talk about is one of the draft picks I acquired in these deals, and I'm loving it.
So I think we do need a podcast just on our leaks.
Dude, that's it. That's the one, yeah.
Or maybe we pick one and we just deep dive it, Yeah, love it.
Yeah.
I will when we do that, I will just tell you guys who I basically have in most of my leagues, because that will make it a little bit easier. Maybe you guys can help me. There's a kid for the Pirates it's like molded jet ski. He's a relief pitcher.
I have him.
Okay, I have him in almost every league, and it started as a problem when I didn't know who he was, and I stumbled across his profile of being a first-round pick. I aggressively went and tried to get him in every league. And I don't think there was much actual retention behind what I was thinking. I just loved the name. But yeah, Doc, we have to talk about your team. I'm excited right now. I pulled your team up just so that we could do this. I'm going to refrain.
Okay, but I will say my top three prospects now. I think I can name them is Langford. The top three outfield. My outfield of the future is Langford, Roman Anthony, and Max Clark. So that's a good place to be. Yeah, and that's just the outfield. Yeah,
with Victor Scott, though, right?
Victor Scott's hanging out, Beck's hanging out, just in case,
Holy cow.
It's crazy, you guys. We have to do this.
Yeah. Shout out to Matt. Matt's been doing a good job, too. Loving the South Stewart, loving some of these picks you made here. Kevin Hidalgo, that's a sleeper. I like that. You got some good stuff. We'll talk about those guys, too.
It's coming next week. I already got it. Everything's already wrapped my head around. And so we're doing our fantasy baseball teams next week.
Yeah, buddy.
All right. Next one, guys. Next one, we're going to go with a third baseman out of the Milwaukee Brewers. He's 6'4", 225 pounds. He is only 21 years old. He was drafted by the Milwaukee Brewers in 2023, round 1, pick 18 overall out of Wake Forest. His name is Brock Wilken, and Doc is pumped. Brock Wilken had 3 different affiliates this year. He started in rookie ball, got promoted all the way up in high A, and then made his double A debut at only 21 years old. He will be 22 in June of this year. So we'll see a 22-year-old all the way in double A, which I love that stuff. I love the age comps in there, but we had 165 at bats over 3 different affiliates, 285 average with an on-base percentage of 414, slugged 473, on-base plus slugging 887, 47 strikeouts, 33 walks, 5 home runs, 4 stolen bases, did not get caught stealing. He had 8 doubles and 4 triples. Brock Wilken, fellas, a no-name for a lot of people. Well,
too many people, man.
Yeah.
I just, I was in Tombstone. I was in a haze for the weekend, fellas. I didn't see the pipeline, the MLB pipeline drop till today. I'm running behind. And so, hey, they're doing some good work over there. Shout them out, but they missed this one. He's not on it. I thought I was missing. I had a control F it. He's not on the top 100 prospects. And my mind's kind of blown there. I'm all in on this guy because I think you can get him at the 10th pick of an FYPD, first-year player draft, maybe later. maybe a little later, not too much later. But I kind of flipped this around on Twitter the other day. I got a Ross Jensen bump. He retweeted something. He shouted me out on there, and I got doubled my followers or something. I'm like, this is too much. I got to go ahead and I got to trim the fat. All right, everyone. I'm doing my FYPD top 12. I think I did. I put Brock Wilken at number 6, ahead of Mr. Cruz.
It got the opposite effect. I think you kept growing.
It wasn't. Yeah. It wasn't, people liked it. People liked it. And today, I'm going to yell about it. I looked at my phone. I was talking about him again, and I see on my phone a tweet liked by Brock Wilken. And I'm like, that's a fan. I click on it. Now it's literally Brock Wilken. Dude, we made it. We're good. This is it.
Did I tell you that we got a comment on our Abimelech Ortiz?
Yep, I saw that. That's great. Here's the thing, right?
I love it.
We're gonna be honest, man. Hey, youngins. We forget these are young lads. A lot of them, especially the high school kids, but even college kids. It's like these guys are just trying to make a career here. They're going for it. So it's something to keep in mind. When we get negative. That said, hey, if we're hurting anyone's feelings, you're big tough guys. Use it as motivation. Prove us wrong, right? That said, man, Brock Wilken, I think he must have liked what I said, because I said it's insane that people are not respecting this guy enough. I think the idea is just like, he's so big. He's too big, maybe. I don't know. Is that it? 6'4", 225. It's a beast. But he doesn't look fat. This is a monster. This is a brick house. And so I think they just expect him to be this strikeout machine like this. And, there's been he had 60-game stretch in college, in 2022, where he had, 71 strikeouts to 34 walks. If you want to look for that, but then you can go ahead and go for the more recent season, 2023, where in 66 games, he walked more than he struck out, 69 to 58. What? With this power? The same year where he's hitting 31 home runs? What? This is insane. That's right, 31 home runs. I know it's college, but 31 in 66 games. I don't care where you're playing. That's crazy. You're top of the class. And yeah, man, and with a 506 OBP. What's going on? So this guy obviously just stock went through the roof for the real draft, but for fantasy people, I think it might be because the top names are so shiny. Like a guy like Cruz was built in. He was built in. The fact that he's not in a top 3 blows people's minds, because he was supposed to be that top guy, maybe the number 1 guy ahead of Skeens even, and it was almost a surprise on draft night when he wasn't. So this is not an anti-Cruz statement. He's 7th, in a really deep class for me, and he's a lot higher. He's higher than 4 other people. I'm thinking, let's just play it this way, right? With Cruz, you might be getting more steals. With Wilken, we know you're not getting any steals. That might be driving this too for fantasy. But what happens with some of these guys? Maybe it's Langford too. Maybe it's it could be any of these guys. They put on a little bit of muscle. They just like hitting bombs. Maybe they stop running. Then who are they? Because I don't think Dylan Cruz's power is ever physically possible to get as big as Brock Wilken's. So, and I think this approach that Wilken's beginning to show is going to be in the same wheelhouse as Cruz. So give me. It was close, but give me that 40 home run potential, from what I can tell, if he gets there, with his approach, if this carries over, give me that and anything else, really. But it looks like it doesn't look like he's going to be a 200, barely getting by slugger. It's going to be, if he's a 250 average, 350 OBP kind of guy with, 30 plus home runs, that's nice. That's nice. And Milwaukee doesn't get enough credit as a hitter's park. Let's point that out too. So, I can go on and on about this kid. I'm looking for flaws. The only flaw I can see is a 6-game sample in Double-A this year. But guess what? The flip side of that is he's in Double-A. He's already there. So I don't think they're going to, if he's just crushing them, and, I believe he actually did get an invite to the big league camp, and they treated him like they were ready to move him fast during this whole process. But, I don't think he's going to make make the team out opening day. That would be insane. But I think if he just does what he's doing to some extent, you're going to see him at the end of 2024, and they're going to warm him up so he can make a run for those incentives in the Rookie of the Year in 2025.
Doc, you nailed that. And Brian, as you brought up the stats, I did a take on Nick Kurtz last night, Wake Forest first baseman, projected top 5 pick, maybe number 1 overall. Guardians probably go with JJ Weatherhold, but broke down his numbers last night, and when you were talking about Wilkins' numbers, it was shooting off flashbulbs in my mind. Wilkin was better than Kurtz was at Wake Forest last year. Now, Wilkin a year older, so there's that. But when you look at the numbers, they both had an OPS of 1,300. Kurtz's was 1,311. Wilkin at 1,313, so he just beats him. 31 home runs to 24 home runs. Body size similar. Kurtz is 6'6", while Wilkin 6'4", as you had said, Doc. But we're talking about Kurtz being the best power hitter, maybe to Jack Caglione of Florida, and maybe a top 5 pick, where Wilkins slid to the Brewers. And the Brewers' number one need over the past 20 years has been a third baseman and a solidified third baseman. Ramirez for a while had been that, in the late 2000s after he came over from the Cubs, but that has been a hole for Milwaukee for as long as I've been a fan. And I find it really interesting. I think a profile that we can comp Wilkin out to kind of safely is that of Rhys Hoskins, who they just signed to a 1-year player option, second-year deal. And I think you're spot on. I don't think he makes the team because he's got a polish, but you could be losing Rhys Hoskins this coming year to that player option if he performs well, and immediately replace him with a cheaper, similar option in Wilkin.
Jeez.
I think you guys make really, really good, interesting cases. I'm going to come in with a different angle, of course. I don't think he's in the same realm as Kurtz. He had better power last year. I will give you that. More power, but complete hitter, I don't think it's super close between the two. But Wilkin is, in my opinion, kind of underrated. I did acquire him in our home league, Brian, in an off-season trade this year. So I am interested in him. I really like the power potential here. What I am concerned about is the strikeouts. I don't think that they're, out of this world high or anything like that, but it's something you want to keep an eye on. Especially as he moves up levels. You can see as he moved up to AA, he was challenged there a little bit. He's got clear power though. The one thing that I guess has given me a little bit of trouble is, for some reason, when I look at his profile, I'm reminded of Max Wagner, and he was kind of a bet of mine, and it didn't quite work out. Now, Brock Wilkins already off to a better start. Came in with better pedigree, so I don't think it's a big concern. And this is probably just a personal thing, but it's something that sticks with me a little bit.
You're haunted by the past. 6 foot,
by the past.
250. He's from Wisconsin, so maybe there's a few things going on here. I mean, I get those kind of things. I mean, the thing is, I keep hearing it, the hit tool, right? Oh, maybe strikeouts. I'm seeing his pro debut, in which, he struggled for 6 games. I wouldn't even call it like a complete bomb, but 33 and 47 walked to strikeouts. So it's like it's not out of control, and he was 27 to 32.
We just need to see that approach translate, because Ross, I agree with you. I'm way bigger on Kurtz than I am Wilkin. But when you actually just put the numbers side by side, it isn't as easy to differentiate. But that's just one part of the evaluation, right? Kurtz had 120 exit velocity with a 90th exit velocity of 109. I don't have Wilkins up from the Wake Forest page, but he's not Kurtz. But he could be, Doc, what you're saying, like he could be a guy that's changed his approach and really just works on in-zone contact, minimizes his chase, and Milwaukee might have gotten a steal. But if he reverts back to the strikeout problems, we might be in trouble with him. AA will be a really big year. I'm really hoping that he has figured out that a plate approach.
Yeah, and so here's the thing: any prospect can have a hard time, of course, and it's not out of this world for that to happen. I think the most fun part about him, playing the fantasy game with him right now, is that the name Nick Kurtz, it would be harder if you could get Nick Kurtz if they were both on the trade block. It's harder to get Kurtz than it is Wilkins, even though he's not even playing anything in pro ball right now. So Wilkins, because this is just this crazy. This is like talking Ross. You missed it, but we were talking about how there's this weird thing in the MLB right now where it feels like this is a generational moment. Perhaps maybe it's recency bias, like I said, but it feels like there's something going on here. So it's actually possible for guys to get lost here. And I'm going to justify real quick, just verbally, my decision with Cruz. It wasn't like let's throw it in there because Cruz's stock is tumbling, and I want to make it's like I felt really compelled to put Cruz higher. I had him higher. And I realized I'm just doing this because I'm supposed to. I'm looking at the numbers, I'm looking at the profiles, and I'm like, dude, I think it could be close, but there's just like, it's funny enough for fantasy purposes, there's almost a safer upside. Just because if you lose those steals with Cruz, I don't know. The hit tool is way safer overall, but as in terms of like the upside, I don't think Cruz is ever going to hit 40 home runs. I think it's like kind of a crazy thing. I'll leave Brock Wilken with a comp, and we're going to bring it back to Scout the Stat Line here. To Scout the Stat Line comp. This is not mine. But David Freese, that's a fun one. David Freese. Remember him?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if I necessarily see it since his home run was total was 20. But, that's very interesting because what are we talking about, right? We're talking about the concerns with his hit tool or his approach. Well, Freese, career 277 average, 351 OBP guy. Crazy last year for Freese. 403 OBP as a 36-year-old. That's pretty wild. So, yeah, if the model's saying his numbers look like a guy who can hit, that's exciting because we know there's power there.
Agreed. And one last note on this. We've been talking about Kurtz and Wilken and comparing them a lot. I just want to bring my personal league into this again. That deal where I acquired Wilken, I also acquired Kurtz. So I went for both of them. I had to give up a lot.
What did you give up?
Tell us what you gave up.
Yeah, you got to tell us.
I gave up Zach Wheeler and another pitcher. Who else did I give up, Brian?
I'm thinking.
Another premium pitcher.
It wasn't Snell.
No, it was not Snell. I have to look it up. I'll get back to you guys on that.
Anyways, Brock Wilken, obviously, I think this is with a weighted volume here. He's a go get him because it's not going to cost you much. He's getting overshadowed by somebody that's not even playing pro ball right now with a great comp of Nick Kurtz. I love it because you're comping the same college, basically the guy that was playing ahead of him and everything. Brock Wilken is a go-get, right, guys?
Yeah.
Well, we talked, to kind of wrap, we talked value earlier, right? And I think you guys said it best. The price point for Nick Kurtz is so much higher because you can dream on the upside. And really in these leagues, being smart is trying to get the best value possible in trades. And the way I play is the opposite. Even though I know better, I'm all on emotion. I love a guy, and I'll give you Barry Bonds for him if that's how I feel. But Wilken's price right now is at a really good point if you do believe kind of where your head's at, Doc. And I think if it turns out, with 90th percentile projection, this is going to be a really good player. But Ross, you're right. There's always the downside. We do have to remind ourselves of that. So, buy, but be aware. We've all been wrong before.
Yes.
My one comp, just to end this real quick, my one comp for Brock Wilkins, I've done this a couple times with the Brewers, but he is a peak Travis Shaw.
Okay.
And Travis Shaw was good as a peak, very good.
Travis Shaw was amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not bad. I kind of like that. Okay, so before we move on, let me detail this trade because it was a big one. Now, context here, I'm defending champion right now in this league, and people don't want to trade prospects with me. That's for sure. So I have to overpay to get anything done in this league, and I'm aware of that at this point. So here's the deal. This is a 3-team deal, and I want to talk about this because I just want to share some of the creative energy that went into trying to get this done because I wanted to get Kurtz. That was my primary target. I traded Aaron Nola, Zach Wheeler, and Eloy Jimenez. And these guys went to 2 different teams. Eloy went to the team with Kurtz. The other 2 went to another team. From the team that has Kurtz, I received Kurtz, Wilken, and Roderick Arias. And then from the third team's perspective, they received the 2 pitchers. There had to have been more. What's going on?
Yeah,
here?
if it was 3.
I like that you got Arias in the deal.
Yeah,
I think that's a nice third quiet, sneaky pairing.
Yeah, I was mentioning that earlier while you're looking that up there, Ross. I was mentioning, like, sometimes it's, and actually Matt was the one who said it. I think I just added on top of it. It's just sometimes those throw-ins, they can be in the deep leagues because your farm system can be, but the one I inherited was just like, who are these guys? Like, literally some of them no longer alive. Like, there was nothing going on there. And now it's like, ooh, who am I going to, how am I going to, yeah, because you can go, that's why I always like to ask people, when you have questions, who do I do? What should I pick? Is this trade good with all these prospects coming my way? I'm like, well, in a 10-person league, you only have so much room. So think about it. Maybe not. Maybe they're replaceable. Right. In a 30-team league, those premium prospects, good luck.
So this is what we're talking about tonight. This is exactly what we're talking about. We're talking about throw-in guys. And that's quote, unquote, throw-in guys.
They're about to get a lot more throw-in. This is it. Those are the premium dudes.
Yeah. Yeah, like we're not talking about Dylan Cruz. We're not talking about your 100 top prospects. We're talking about guys that you say, okay, I'm giving you Nola, and I'm getting back
Caleb Durbin.
Okay, let's go. And I'm going to give you Garrett Cole. I'm getting Nola back, and I want a throw-in guy because I believe that Nola's going to be better than Garrett Cole. I want one of these throw-in guys. These are the guys that we're talking about, and it's going to take 2 or 3 of them. But these guys that you want to catch on before they start hitting top prospect lists. That was a terrible comp. I know Garrett Cole's not worth
other way
Nola.
around.
Just I'm just trying to find a comp for it. The guys that are you're trying to equal out a trade with. These are the guys that you want.
So the other guy moved in that deal was Jazz Chisholm from the team that received the 2 pitchers to the team that traded the prospects. So he got Eloy and he got Jazz Chisholm.
Jazz. Okay.
And
Jazz Chisholm.
I want to throw one other little wrinkle in this. This deal was done in October. So now, since then, and this is why I do deals like this as early as I can, because since then, Roderick Arias has been getting top 100 prospect notoriety, as has Wilkin in a lot of places. So, and Kurtz is my favorite pick for number 1 pick in the draft. So, from my perspective, it's like, I know I paid a lot, losing those 2 pitchers, especially going into a championship defense. But I got Yamamoto coming in. I have some reasons why I was doing what I was doing.
Don't talk about your team too much because we'll get into that next week.
All right.
Anyway. Our next one, guys. Our next one. We're going to dive into our next one. He is only 5'6". He's 185 pounds. He's 23 years old. He plays for the Atlanta Braves. He was drafted in 2001, round 14, pick 427 overall out of College Washington-St. Louis, Missouri. His stats over 3 different years, in 21, 22, 23, he's had 691 at-bats. His average sits at 266, on-base percentage of 367, slugged 386 with an on-base plus slugging of 753. That does not tell the tale because in 2023, when he got the call up into high A and into double A, he had 253 at-bats, an average of 304, on base of 395, slugged 427 with an on-base plus slugging of 822, with 4 home runs, 36 stolen bases, and only got caught 8 times. That's 17 triples and 1 double. So definitely matured as he got into the older leagues, which is very impressive. Doc, this is pick number 3, man. What do you got? Caleb Durbin.
Yeah, this is the anti-Wilkin. A foot shorter. But it's interesting. He's not a skinny guy. He's a jacked up guy. I looked into this guy. I was looking for in this. It's where you keep coming back to the 30-teamer because this is why I got into the 30-teamer, and I recommend it to anyone who wants to know prospects clear because it's helped so much by force. Like, who's my last pick of the draft? And there were other guys who were taller who had more hype a little bit for as much as you can get in that at that point of the draft. And there's just something about this kid. I'm like, I like this guy. He's got some grit. It's a kind of one of those stories, man. It's so interesting, 5'7", 5'8", 5'9", 5'10", the story changes only if, people don't maybe take into consideration the height so much, but there's something 5'6", maybe even 5'7", but yeah, 5'6", man. I mean, apparently he was killing it in high school and everything, and he wasn't getting the offers, he wasn't getting the hype, he wasn't getting the calls, and so he had to grind his whole way up. As you said, he's a 14th rounder, and then finally he got a call from the Braves, and then he started working his way through their system, and actually, I think you said he's playing for the Braves. He got traded. To the New York Yankees. And that's just so interesting, right? So he was like, his whole story is like, whoa, I'm going from this grinder, and he spoke with the Yankees guys, and they were like, we want you to be a New York Yankee. And think what you will about them if you hate them, but as a baseball player, it's a historic franchise, right? It's like, wow, okay, man. And then he comes up, and just absolutely, as you said, he's growing. I mean, I'm not that tall myself. I was gonna say there's just a joke in there. He's growing everything but vertically. He's growing. I'm sorry, man. Like I said, I'm not gonna tell you. No, but he's growing, and his plate discipline is off the charts. Like, you're gonna have to have some power. You're gonna have to have some power, but if you can get on base, this is not going to directly translate. But if you can start putting up numbers that are in the 350 or higher, 400 or higher, like he was doing at some of the lower levels, and you're stealing a ton of bases, and you're playing mean defense, and you're just a grinder, you're scoring runs. I mean, there's room for you somewhere in this league. And so, and he actually did. He finally started getting some press in the Arizona Fall League this year. If you take a look at that, it's a 23-game sample. In those 23 games, he stole 21 bases. And nice. Yeah, he got close to the record, and I think it was less games than the other guy who got it. But 456 OBP, 353 batting average. This was against some of these guys that have been on the show. So this is good. That's a great sign. That's the most recent ball he played, and it was the best ball he's ever played. And to put a little cap on that, he hit 3 home runs in those 23 games, which for a guy, like if you can hit 10 home runs, 5 to 10, 15, we're not going to get there. But maybe, the 10 plus home runs, this is a real player. This is a ball player. And great name, Caleb Durbin. And just like, yeah, I like this guy. Scout the stat line. The model's going to knock him. His age, he's getting up there a little bit, 23-year-old. He needs to really prove it. He needs to prove it at the higher levels at AA. AA 291 batting average, that plays, but we gotta see more. It's gotta keep coming. But man, he's starting to play some second base. This could be, who else plays second base? Hits a few more home runs, and he's 5'6". There's Jose Altuve, right? He's gonna get comped to him all the time, even though they're not really some players. But it's a lot of fun, man. This is a real deep league guy. You're not gonna go out and get him, but if you're in a deeper league, it's someone to think about. He's actually penciled in as like, I'm kind of counting on him in this 30-teamer. I got good depth everywhere. I might have to, make a move from somewhere I'm deeper for a second baseman. But I would love, because my team kind of lacks some speed, I'd love for a guy who hits for average, gets on base, and steals bases. I don't really, as a fantasy guy, I'm good with that since I've got Brock Wilken and all these Torkels and all these guys slugging bombs, right? Give me Caleb Durbin. Give me Caleb Durbin all day as a fun deep league flyer and hope for the best. That'd be such a fun story. From
Doc, I'm going to toss out a name, and I'm going to be careful because I tend to lean on the positive side and the reinforced data side. I don't think these players are actually close, but we talked value a lot on this show, and Durbin's numbers and size happens to just remind me of Jet Williams. Jet Williams is projected to have more power. Jet Williams is projected to have more speed. Jet Williams is what we're flying up prospect boards right now, and his price point is outrageous. Mm-hmm. But when you really look at what Durbin can do, it might be 60 or 70% of what Jet Williams is being projected. And what you have to pay for Durbin isn't nearly the price tag of Jet Williams. The speed is what catches my eye. The power numbers haven't been there like they have for Jet. Again, we don't have advanced data, so we can't tell if his exit velos, are plus or if they're in the lower tier. But I love the price, and like you said, in a 30 team, I'm much more willing to go out and toss him into my organizational depth than I am trading a really big player for Jet Williams.
Yeah.
Okay, so I just acquired Jet Williams.
I love him. I love him. What'd you give up?
I gave up Andrew Vaughn and Sonny Gray.
Oh, that's a great trade.
I just got Jet Williams, Bubba Chandler, and Iggy Rosario.
You got Chandler with him?
Yes.
Oh, wow. Okay.
It's
that's a massive haul.
League. It's a tough league.
Well, to perspective, I offered Brian Bello for Chandler straight up and was told no. So I think you won this trade easily. I'll take Chandler over Williams. I really like Williams, but I think Chandler has top 20 upside, and I'm aggressive with Chandler. But yeah, Jet's amazing.
Yeah, Bubba Chandler was a throw-in to make he was to make it equal.
Ross, what do you think of Jet? I like his profile, but I want to get your take on Jet and the comparison I just made. I guess.
Oh, well, we can talk about Caleb too.
Yeah, Caleb the younger brother.
I'll bring it back. I love Jet Williams. I'm a big fan. I think I have him as a top 20 prospect. So I'm definitely very high on him. I think he's got speed. I think he's got developing power. I think he's got the plate discipline. But let's talk about Caleb Durbin a little bit, because this is some guy that I have not had my pulse on quite as closely, and I love that we're talking about him because color me intrigued. It's an interesting profile. I don't know if we're looking at an impact player or not, but I mean, you're right. He had a huge Arizona Fall League, which is really cool, fun to see. I love the story, and get this, looking through the numbers. And I don't really care what school you're playing at, but coming up for the WashU Bears, his final year, 190 plate appearances, he struck out twice. I mean, I don't care how small that school is. 2 strikeouts and 190 plate appearances. That's he's got some contact skills.
Yeah, sorry. I want you to keep going, but I kind of glossed over. I mean, I mentioned his OBP being high, but it's like it is an insane, little run he had here in 2023 year. He had 26 walks to 18 strikeouts. I mean, his on-base skills are unbelievable. That's the thing here. So
that's 18. That's 18 strikeouts and 253 at bats. I was waiting for somebody to say it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's fascinating just kind of looking through the numbers. They are very unique. Like, you don't see this kind of profile too much. And I often think uniqueness finds success because not anyone else can do it quite like that. So from that perspective, I think that there is something potentially interesting here. I have a different comp than Jet Williams that was coming to mind as I was looking through the numbers. Now, the strikeouts are not in the same realm, but Brett Gardner, I was just thinking of Brett Gardner. You got the Yankees connection. Gardner's bigger than Durbin is, but I was just kind of thinking of that spark plug that kind of sets the tone for the team, the way you were describing it, and maybe we've got something kind of like that here.
Yeah. I mean, I'm looking at Gardner right now, so he developed some power later on. I'm not sure what that was, launch angle, pulling in Yankee Stadium, whatever, but it took him till he was 30 years old to have anything over 8 home runs in a season. Yeah, which is interesting. And this, again, I got to hit on that again. We're all ready to jump on Estuary, Uriz, and all that. Ruiz, of course, he's very fast, very good, prolific base stealer, but he's like 150 pounds, and he's 6 feet tall. So we like that part of it, and there is something to be said for leverage and certain physics. But 185 pounds at 5'6", that is jacked. That is
he's
like
a big dude.
Beefcake.
Yeah.
So I'm very, as we said earlier, we don't have the data on all this. I'm very curious to see how he develops and how this translates. And it's kind of cool that the Yankees, they're an old school organization. And what you're talking about, Ross, you say you don't really see these guys. I would say you don't really see these guys anymore. They used to be more common, right? It's like a classic leadoff guy, like a more fun Stephen Kwan, I want to say. Like a more fun.
Well, I mean, the flip side to that is Ronald Torreyes. I don't know if that name rings a bell, but high volume, smaller contact guy. Didn't quite pan out in the major leagues, but he had pretty impressive minor league numbers.
Yeah, I'm seeing the stat. I love these scout the stat line comps. They're so fun. I don't know this guy, but if you have watched baseball for a little longer than me, you might have heard his name in the manager ranks. Larry Boa. You know this guy? Larry Boa was managing in the bigs between 87 and 2004, and he even stuck around past that. He had a talk show, and then he's actually right now the assistant or some kind of senior advisor to the Phillies GM, I believe. So he had a really weird career because I don't see anything that looks good on his stat sheet here. I mean, 260 batting average in an era where they cared about that more. 300 OVP, not good. But this guy was a multi-time All-Star. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He had MVP votes multiple times. I don't understand. He must have played amazing defense and just been a gritty guy.
Well, yeah, Doc, he was known for the grit, even as a manager, right? He was known as a guy that taught guys the fundamentals and got them to play hard and would bench you if you don't run to first base. And he played the game under the circumstance of maybe the old baseball rules, which is the right way. And I think that's so funny that that's what the comp is, because I can't imagine the model is bringing up
grit.
Grit. That's kind of
you
eerie.
Won't get this in any other model.
Definitely an input.
Did you put in an AI model that overall looks at personality traits? Because that would be impressive.
That's right. That's maybe the future of the comp model.
So there we got. There's Caleb Durbin once again, going to be a throw-in guy. But he's a go-get-him for us, right?
You get him in any league.
There's no free agent.
He's available. You don't have to trade for him. He's there. You can get him.
Yeah,
except in the league I play in.
Except in our league.
Yeah. So Caleb Durbin, just free agent pickup, drop a long reliever that you have. You have no reason to carry that 6 ERA for that long reliever. Just drop them.
Or even, and this might be a conversation for another episode, but Doc, in our league, I was having a hard time deciding what international players in year 2 and in year 3 that were still struggling to drop. I think this is a deep conversation in regards to when do we start to move on from potential and we start to really settle into, okay, the guy is just never going to be able to produce above the DSL, above the Florida Complex League. It's time to move on, right? I think that's a really deep conversation.
We just did a 60-player international draft, and they have the Asian signees in there, which is interesting. I don't know if that's really common everywhere, but I'm kind of the mentality of what you're saying, and that I have patience for guys who are 18, 19, 20, 21. That's a wheelhouse. Like in a high schooler who's 18. That's even kind of an ask, but if there's upside, sure. I'll have some of those guys in there, and hope that, especially with the way that the game's going today, maybe they move up faster. But if I'm picking a 16-year-old or a fresh 17-year-old, although they might be older, as we're finding out
again.
And so if that's the case, I was out, man. Like if I don't have the top 20 international pick, now I'll take my Durbin. We're good. I don't have room for those guys. So.
I get that. Ross has a really good saying for this. I will give prospects an inch of what you're saying, Ross.
So I have very little patience with prospects, and I have extremely long patience with pros. That's kind of my philosophy. I always take that approach. You can have a bad season at the professional level without being a bad player. But as a prospect, you can bounce back, but it's less common. Mm-hmm. You're more challenged.
Yeah. Well, I think a name that immediately pops into my mind would be Yanquiel Fernandez. The excitement for him in May and June was the exact opposite at the second half of his season after that AA performance, because the numbers were just so horrendous. I was pushing him top 30, top 20 when he was in high A, and then the strikeout wave came. And I had to drop him in a few leagues because I just had to admit to myself that I was wrong. Now that he was facing better pitchers, and now I have to hope for his development for him and for my fandom. But if he does blow up this year in AA and he just shows that it took him some time to adapt to the pitching, I'm just going to have to chalk that one up as, I didn't wait around long enough. But that's a whole nother conversation of like, what is an inch to these minor leaguers?
Yep, for sure. Give an inch for prospects, give a mile for pros. That's what I was reaching for.
I like that.
All right.
There's another element to that for me, and I've said this refrain a lot lately. I try to take the guessing out of it. So if somebody is underperforming, I don't know if that's just a struggle or an injury or what it could be. So I'm trying to move on from them before their prospect pedigree drops. That's just my approach.
Mm-hmm.
No offense to these kids. I hope that they all prove me wrong.
We're playing the game here. We're playing a game. Trying to win. We got to move on. But Seb Walcott's another even higher profile example, right? Like, you're in a spot now. I was so hyped up on this guy. I like the Rangers a little bit. I don't really have any diehard fan team. I just kind of like teams, kind of. But I was like, yeah, Walcott. Oh, he's got these tools. But then immediately I'm like, whoa. Not immediately, but right now, lately, I'm like, that's too many strikeouts.
And it flipped. He exploded, much like Yankiel did, and then some of the knocks on his grades, you started to see it in his actual box scores, and his stat line, and it was, it's literally what we just talked about. It's like sometimes you need a full season to really be like, okay, how did he fare throughout the entire year?
Yeah. All right, let's get into our next guy, fellas. We got the next one of Doc's last one, and he is going to be Hogan Windish. Hogan Windish is with the High A affiliate with the Seattle Mariners. He is 24 years old. He's 5'11", 222 pounds. He was drafted in 2022, round 7, picked 216 overall out of UNC Greensboro by the Seattle Mariners. His stats, he did have a 129 at-bats last year, but I'm going to give him his 2023 season with the High A affiliate. He had 385 at-bats, 270 average, 372 on-base percentage, and a slugging of 506 with on-base plus slugging of 878. That's 10 stolen bases, 22 home runs, 17 doubles. Strikeouts were a big concern, 139 with 55 walks. But Hogan Windish, nobody talks about. Nobody. And he's got some potential, fellas. Go at it.
How to do a little cigar refill. We're having too much fun here, ladies and gentlemen. So we are here with Hogan Windish, which is just an unbelievable name. We got to hope that he was after Hulk Hogan. And I don't know what Windish is, but it's fantastic. So this is an interesting guy. He's kind of like in the Durbin, in the Caleb Durbin kind of thing of you might not have heard of him, and he's probably available in every league you're in. That said, he might be a little bit more like one notch above because I had a trade for him. I got him as that throw-in, Jordan Beck and Hogan Windish as just like a random throw-in for Michael Busch with the Dodgers when we weren't sure if he was going to be held hostage forever. Love this guy's like, great baseball body, 5'11", 222, just a chunky boy, chunky Southern boy. That means your strike zone in baseball, it's actually not a bad thing, right? Your strike zone isn't as big. And you clearly have quite a bit of power. His I'll actually start with a knock. We got to watch for his age, funny enough. And that goes along with his other knock, which is strikeouts. How much time is he going to be given, right, to figure that out? But here's the thing that intrigues me about him. It's not like, he's never failed at any level yet. He's only been good. He's just like one of these guys who kind of, when's his birthday is May. His first year after being drafted, he was 23. He's already 23. This might have been a guy who maybe was, it's hard for me to read all this and see what's going on, but in terms of like, there's a lot of these guys that were coming through right now, they're COVID affected, right? Whether it was they lost a season or they just had less playing time. So, maybe they stay, I don't know, it just kind of affects people. And so with Hogan Windish, you see that in 2022, he came up in rookie ball. He was clearly too advanced. This guy's going 300, 385, and then even, that was rookie ball and then high A. Right after that, it's a 23-year-old. He went 336 batting average, 438. That's not who he is. So that was, frankly, I mean, there's only so much time after you're drafted.
Yep.
But, you could say Mariners, I think you could have just brought him up one more, right? Anyway, so this past year, he's 24 now, and he's in high A's. But you see what I'm saying? He didn't do anything. He just did a 438 OBP right before that. And interestingly enough, in those 33 games after his draft, he only had 2 home runs. So he's just like having a good approach and hitting, striking out a little bit. Then came this year, which is very polarizing, where in 105 games at high A, all at high A, again, maybe you could have tested him a little bit by the end. Who's to say? He had a 270 batting average with a 372 OBP. So it doesn't sound that bad, but you see the strikeouts, 139. You're like, oh my goodness, right? 55 walks. He's walking a little bit. It's an interesting profile. The reason we're paying attention, the reason I'm talking about him is because he led the Northwest League with 22 home runs. That's pretty impressive considering so some of the guys he's playing against, Jordan Beck, funny enough, Yanquiel Fernandez, Harry Ford. As you can see, these are West Coast guys. Tyler Locklear at this level, in about 40 less games, but Tyler Locklear had 12 home runs. And he led the league in OPS too at 878, which was considerably more than 840, the next best guy. So again, I think he was probably he needed to bump up again because I still don't know who he is. This guy could easily, just put it out there, this guy could easily, more so than a Jordan Beck, I think, fall into the whole, you're striking out too much. It's over, right? But the power's here. Somehow he stole 10 stolen bases. I don't think that's happening. But, the power's here. It's real. The question is, can he get to it? And what's just so interesting to me is that in college, too, I mean, this had crazy, his approach seemed okay. I'm going to go ahead and guess without looking into it. What's the school here? I went to University of North Carolina.
Greenboro.
Okay. So I don't know, what the competition level, I'm not a college guy. If anyone wants to speak up to that, by all means. But he was just absolutely crushing that. And so it's very interesting. Tons of power. Will cost you basically nothing. He was a casual throw-in. The guy recommended it, so clearly he didn't want him on his roster. He's just like, yeah, I would just give you Hogan Windish. I was like, well, the name's great. Who is he? And no, he's leading the league in bombs, and the rest of it it's enough for me to take a flyer. It's the power version of Caleb Durbin.
I agree with everything that you said, and I think the best thing that you said in that whole point was he would be a college freshman during the COVID years. So that ruined a full year of his baseball career, and then it translated into another year to go on, and that's where you're seeing that 24-year age. Being in high A ball. I like that a lot because it explains why he's still sitting there. The thing that doesn't explain it is why hasn't he got promoted already to Double A or further. We're going to get to more on that on some other players. I would like to know a little bit more about Hogan Windish. Is he blocked? Are there younger players above him in the Seattle organization that are in Double A, that are in Triple A?
I got one for you.
Why isn't he up there yet?
I got one for you.
Does he have defensive flaws? That stuff.
So you're on the right track, buddy. Because I dug a little bit, right? And so think about another guy who's in the Seattle organization who they're kind of slow rolling, but there's a lot more hype. In our circles, at least. Tyler Locklear, I just mentioned him, right? And he's playing first. And you're like, come on, can we just bump him up? Like, what's taking so long? Because I think he's in the similar kind of age bracket, but I believe, he was clearly in the same league. He's got those stats there. And then I believe he got the call to Double A, though. So he's right. He's one notch. Whatever. So you're going to look at his page. You're going to see a second baseman on Fantrax. We have this 5'11", 222-pound Hogan Windish as a second baseman. He's playing first, and it's not me just saying that. He's been playing first. So they decided to move him over. So, you could be onto something with the defensive situation as well. I kind of like that. Once again, with my 30-man team, it's so hard sometimes to find a prospect because you're kind of guessing. Is it going to be a third baseman who moves over to first? Is it going to be an outfielder who can't field, so he gets pushed to first? Is there room for that? Well, no, this guy, they're saying right now, early on, for a 24-year-old, saying, yeah, you're first baseman. Yeah, that's who you are. So I like that. It's certainty in a deep league, which is for a first baseman hard to find. So yeah, there's some. It's really interesting because it's like a lot of this isn't his fault. You have Tyler Locklear right in front of you the whole way. You're not going to leapfrog him because you're kind of the same guy anyway. And then you just have this thing where you came out of the draft already 23. It's like these are things you can't control. So
what you can control is destroying the ball, which he's getting there.
COVID really messed a lot of profiles up and a lot of kids' futures up. And you dated all the way back to high school. I thought yesterday as I was driving, how many major league players that would have been aren't even in baseball anymore because of that missed year of development. Kids that maybe lost out on scholarship, kids that may have had an injury and didn't have proper rehab. Like the variables run deep. I looked up a profile, Doc, because of the second base attachment. So this isn't as relevant now, but the name that came to mind when you were throwing out numbers was Dan Uggla. And I looked back at Dan Uggla's high A season, which was 2003, back when he was with Arizona before the Rule 5 selection by Florida. He was age 23, so a little bit younger, right? I think we just talked about the unfortunate nature of Windish's circumstances. But Uggla had 23 home runs. Uggla had 105 strikeouts, so a little bit less. The strikeouts do concern me, but, we're looking at profiles here. And batted .290. Dan Uggla, as a major leaguer, provided power at second base that was desperately needed while hitting .260, hitting .243, hitting .287. And, maybe if there's still a block, they find a position for him. Maybe that past ability at second base does come through. We just have so many infielders in this organization. But I love the deep league because Dan Uggla would be a fantastic outcome for somebody that nobody's talking about. I don't think we can forecast that, but listen, numbers are numbers and they're similar to Uggla.
I love that comp. So the Statline does not have a comp for him, which I don't like. I wish there was a comp. But yeah, they're not going to like him because he's old. He's old.
He's old man.
Yeah, old 24. And it's there's some strikeout concerns. So they're not going to love him too much. But Uggla, fascinating line. I'm looking at his page right now. So 22 in A and high A. That year he went for a .214 batting average and a .301 OBP. So you could say things weren't going great. Actually had his strikeouts under control better, but hey, it wasn't showing. Then the next year, as you're saying, 290, 355. That's a huge jump. And so that's probably, there's a 1-year difference, as you're saying, but that could be something, that we're looking for here. They're both just, thick 5'11" boys. So, it's really interesting. Yeah, like I said, knowing he's a first base prospect, I don't really want to move him because...
Well, in first base, it's okay to be a 27-year-old rookie. Like first base usually is older, right? Ivan Melendez, look at Matt Mervis right now. Probably will be here in Vegas with the A's by the time he's 30, making his major league, re-debut. It's way better at first to be older. That's just my take on the age.
Uggla was 26.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, you're onto something there, man. I like that. So, Ross, Matt, I kind of cut you off there. So Matt or Ross, someone other than me, talk about Hogan Windish, the world famous.
Ross, go for it. I gave my input.
I think you guys nailed it. I like the Dan Uggla comp too quite a bit. It's a Hail Mary.
Yes.
Let's just be honest. It's a Hail Mary, but we're giving you deep value. So.
Yeah, and I'm just going to go ahead and guess here. I think a lot of these guys coming up, this is my last guy. You're welcome, viewers. This is it for me. I think a lot of these names are Hail Marys. You could probably classify them as such. I'm going to go ahead and guess they got better hit tools, but I'm trying to give you some fun ones here. I'll give you a little stolen base guy, and I got to be a big, chunky power hitter. We'll see what happens. Like I said, I don't want to move either of them right now. They're fun to own, and we'll find out. And that's the thing too. When you got them in these positions, as much as it's like, it makes you feel a little bit nervous, right? When you're like, it's a make or break year. Well, I mean, I'd rather find out, right? With this 23, 24-year-old, make or break. Who are you? Versus like the 16-year-old, who I'm like, well, I guess I got to wait 5 years to find out. So it's like, I'll pick you up for nothing, and I'll find out right away.
Agreed.
Just imagine trying to do these deep leagues without Fantrax.
No. Even worse than that. Think about the guys that have been playing for 30 years that use newspapers. The guys that subscribe to Baseball America's magazine because that was the only reference point that you even had a shot at. And those are the grinders. We have all the resources nowadays. We're very lucky.
Yeah, shout out to Fantrax.
I mean, you leave Fantrax and it gets pretty scary out there. I mean,
yeah,
you got some options, but they're limited.
Yeah. Shout out. I want to say this before, I want to say right now, shout out to Fantrax. Check out Fantrax if you're not on it. And if you're listening to this podcast, with the names that are about to come up, you're going to have to be on it because they ain't going to be on Yahoo. When I first came over from Yahoo, I love Yahoo. It's still my favorite for interface, but my goodness, you're not going to get these names. And it's like a cigar. It's like whiskey. It's an acquired taste in terms of the interface, but Fantrax is doing it right. They're there for you for dynasty purposes.
We have a league member in our longest home league that has been blocked by ESPN accounts, like the writers for ESPN, because he emails them so often because players aren't in their player pool. And that is our dynasty format. We do everything offline, but we use them as our hosting site. So Robbie Snelling's not in their player pool. Roman Anthony wasn't in their player pool. Drew Thorpe wasn't in their player pool. Chase Hampton. I mean, guys we have in our top 20s. And this past August, they finally blocked his email because he wouldn't stop sending them emails to put them in the player pool. And it just goes to show that Fantrax is so far and away ahead of the Yahoos and the ESPNs and even the CBS, which was up until I ran into Fantrax, the best platform. And then Fantrax just blew them all out of the water.
I mean, not to get way off topic, but doesn't that scream the difference when Fantrax literally has a part of the site dedicated for submit a player request on one hand, and then on the polar opposite side, you've got ESPN who's going to block you for reaching out too much about that. Yeah. I had issues. I mean, anyway. Let's move on.
Well, I'll say we found out we were in this league, this 30-team league, and a guy, my friend said, "Oh, he's not in the pool. What do I do?" And then I talked to the commissioner. He said, "Hey, send it to this link." I'm like, "Oh, how long is that going to take?" Replied like that. He was in the pool real quick. So, almost really fast, that night. So these guys.
All that said, there are features that I want on Fantrax and I've been pushing for that we haven't gotten yet. But by far the best platform. So I've got nothing bad to say.
Guys, we are rolling a sponsored deck here today. I think it's time we start looking at buying, a new home, maybe a boat. By the time we go next week, we should be fully decked out in Zinn Fantrax gear. Coors Light, yeah. The Firestone Brewery. I think we're going to be all right.
Okay. Well, guys, we are jumping into our next grouping. We have finished with Doc Holliday's grouping. He gave us some quality, fantastic. Yeah, there it is. Look at all the confetti flying down.
Fancy.
We're jumping into Matt Morris's. And Matt Morris's is not coming up for me right now. So I am having a tough time going on his first gig because I am struggling.
Want me to lead off the first guy?
Yes, please. Can you do Andrew Walters for me?
Okay. We got Andrew Walters coming in hot from Cleveland. Now, this is an FYPD selection. And the reason I'm talking extra slow is I didn't actually have it pulled up. So, Andrew Walters I believe he is actually a relief pitcher, which is it's just something. Yes, he is. I got him pulled up. He is a 6'4", 225-pound righty. Now we're getting into it from the Cleveland Guardians organization. They picked him Well, actually, he was originally drafted by the Orioles in the 18th round in 2022. Mr. Walters said, "I don't think so. You got to do better than that." So he went the next year, this past draft in the second round. Major improvement. He was born December 8th, 2000. That makes him a fairly recent 23-year-old. And he's at he was born in Palm Bay, Florida. He went to high school there, and he went to the University of Miami. He just loves that place. Loves the heat. Loves the humidity. He's gonna have to get used to Cleveland because it ain't the same. So, this is a guy who he's a college arm, which there's just so much less certainty with high school arms. So it already makes you feel better, but it makes you feel real good. Is that he's got a college ERA of 1.41, and he's got more innings in the last 2 years than guys like Mason Miller or Daniel Espino. He put up 102 innings, which I think is really an underrated statistic, is innings pitched. Since 2021, 102 innings now as a relief pitcher. That's it's just icing on the cake. College WHIP of 0.814. Oh baby, 15.0 strikes. K9 there with and you love this because this is sometimes the last thing to click, right? It's a 1.4 walks per nine. And with that, we will hand it off to the one, the only Matt Morris.
Yes. So I tossed on a couple RPs to this list because, Doc, we've talked this whole episode about how we're in a 30-man, and I think there's a lot of value in deeper leagues in RPs and trying to identify players like the Milwaukee Brewers did, and guys, you might have to help me with the name. Is it Uribe, the 102-mile-an-hour sinker that they have, who's 20 years old? If you think of the name, toss him in there. But I wanted to identify who could possibly play roles like him in the upcoming 2 seasons. And Walters popped off the page for me when I saw those numbers that you just read out, Doc. 7 walks this past year in 44 2/3 innings. The control is there. The big concern is he is a one-pitch pitcher. When you look at his grades on Baseball America, he comes in with a 65 grade fastball on the scale of 80. The problem, a 40 grade slider. There isn't anything else. Control comes in at 55. So he really leveraged that fastball in college. It's kind of a deceptive delivery is what the overall scouting report brings back to you. And then upper zone ride on his fastball. I don't have the data in front of me. I'm sure we could find it to look at his vertical release. But I like the numbers enough to take him in a deep league or to pick him up if you really have concerns about saves or holds. Maybe you have older closers. Maybe you're rostering a Diaz. Maybe you're taking a shot on a Kirby Yates this year, and you need someone coming down the pipeline. The 2 names being Walters, and then the next name that I have are guys that I think you can slide in and may actually provide immense value for you, even if it's just as a trade chip down the road.
So yeah, I am awful at pitchers. I'll be the first one to admit this. I don't understand how you can find a flaw in a starting pitcher, move him to the bullpen, and then vice versa. I can't find where, okay, well, the kid's crushing it in the bullpen. Let's move him to a starting pitcher. Let's, work out his arm and start going there. It's got to be because of your repertoire, for one. You have to have different kinds of pitches between a fastball, a sinker, a curve, a slurve, however multitude. And we're coming up with names nowadays that I just don't even understand. Like you have all kinds of stuff coming out of a guy's arm. When I hear about Walters having only a fastball and then a 40 grade slider, is that what you were saying?
Yeah, slider's the only secondary pitch that's listed on his profile currently.
What happens to the guy's arm when he tries to throw a curve or a slurve or whatever multitude of things that you want to do when he's got 23 years of experience throwing a fastball, and then he's going to put his arm slot in a different position? That terrifies me a little bit. He's not a starting pitcher in my mind. He's a reliever, and I love finding young relievers. That's the biggest thing that I wanted to point out is finding a young reliever that's not going to go into a starting pitching role, because then you know what you have. The other aspect of that is Justin Steele was a reliever, and now he was top 3 in the Cy Young winner. How do you? I mean, that's like asking God.
Well, I
like, where are you going to find these guys? Well, you're not. You're really not. Go get Andrew Walters as a relief pitcher and hope for the best. If he develops something else, that's icing on the cake, man.
I just think what a great organization to go to.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Like, if there's anybody that can take a guy with only a fastball and a bad slider and turn him into a even better pitcher than what you listed off for his college numbers, I believe the Guardians can do it. Now, Brian, what you just brought up is something I didn't even think about, and I absolutely agree with you. I do have concerns. If you, like you just said, they bring him in and they see the way he throws and they're like, okay, power curve, that's what you're going to. It's like, okay, well, when do we schedule Tommy John? But I try not to think about those negatives, right? They're absolutely valid. This is a guy that I am absolutely rostering because I'm seeing a projection for him to at least play out and be a major league pitcher. It may not be a good one. If he just throws a fastball, he might be a 5.5 ERA and gone. But those college numbers were so dominant at Miami. It's got me really interested as we get deeper in first-year player drafts.
Yeah, I mean,
even if he throws a two-seamer instead of a 4, and it just has one little dip, that'll help him out, missing some bats. It's a superstar. The question is, can you develop that one little movement?
It's what I think it is. People say, "Oh, don't draft them. Don't assess value for fantasy based on where they're drafted in real life." Well, I'm not going to do that, but I am going to count it for something, and we all do. I look at things like that. I look at things like signing bonus, because it is something. It is a real team with real money putting money where their mouth is, and they're putting it behind Andrew Walters here, and in the second round, where there's tons of great talent, especially in a deep
great point.
And he went right after Alonzo Treadwell, which is interesting because he's another relief pitcher. You don't really see these guys go too high too often. I pulled up a bunch of guys here. I got your guy. You were thinking of Abner Uribe.
Thank you.
Uribe. You were correct. Interesting. I would much rather have Walters because as much as Uribe is there, dude, I mean, his control sucks. His guy's all over the place. He had a 20 walk per 9 when he was in the foreign league, 22-23.
Doc, you got to check out his movement videos.
Yeah.
And those that are listening and watching, check out some of his highlights. I agree with you. His control is crazy, but he doesn't even know where the ball is going because there's so much movement. And that is, your eyes pop out. You're like, what if he can even just get a little better?
Which is why he's already been in the major league. And
they have a term for that, effectively wild.
Yes. and when I think about relief pitchers, I think of guys like one guy's got a big buzz lately is Emiliano Teodo of the Rangers. Mm-hmm. And another guy, he's not nearly as bad at control. In fact, in the fall league looked really nice. But Alonzo Treadwell, I mean, look at Treadwell. I mean, his ERA, again, I hear things like, don't look at ERA. Well, I'm going to, because that's what's going to show up on your stat line. And, it is a thing, man. Baseball's a mental game. That's why they talk about baseball IQ. I've gotten into this with Ross about it a couple times. He's like, I don't like to lean too much on baseball IQ. I wouldn't lean too much on it, but it's something. It's a thinking man's game. And with a pitcher, there's a lot of thinking going on. And so I think that if you can prevent runs, and again, I'm going to touch on everyone here. We heard about Justin Steele here, Brian. People don't know what to make of Justin Steele because it shouldn't be. This stuff is doesn't make sense. He's got this weird cutter. It just hits in the right place at the right time. He's got that. He's thinking right in that way. So clearly, Andrew Walters is almost more impressive. He's got, like you said, Matt. He's got these numbers. One pitch. So there's the other way. It's like, well, how does he get the other one? What are the consequences? Or what's the upside when if you get something good out of that?
Yeah,
already pretty dang good.
Well, and to your point, he learned how to get those strikeout numbers and to have that effectiveness while keeping walks at an absolute minimum. So he wasn't afraid to throw batters the fastball. Yeah. That is incredible. I mean, I don't know how you do that. And I remember Freddie Peralta coming up and playing against the Rockies in his first professional game. And if I remember correctly, it was 10 strikeouts. And I think it was like 93% fastballs thrown in that game. And you saw the problems that came from that lack of arsenal. Now look at the development he has had, but it worked through 5 or 6 innings in that first pro debut. All of the Rockies were seeing were fastballs, and they just couldn't hit it. And he's not a 97, 98 guy. He was a 92, 93. And there is something about deception, but you're right. If he can pick up one more pitch, even a plus pitch, I think we've got a guy that can explode into 30, 40 saves and be dominant.
Whew, that's sexy.
Well, and I'll just say one more thing, because Ross, I feel like Ross needs to say a little something if he's feeling it. And by the way, Brian, you should have had me for the pitchers podcast. I was left off the pitchers podcast. They told me 5 minutes before, this is what you're getting with Scout the Stat Line. No, but and it was like midnight Eastern time. Anyway, I would say that I think Matt touched on that just a little bit, how valuable relievers can be in deeper leagues, which we're in that. Anyone still listening is in a deeper league, or at least interested in it. You know what? I shouldn't even say that, because it's not just that. Because some of the top prospects today that you're going for in shallow leagues or even medium leagues, a lot of them were once long shots, or they were deeper prospects. They don't all just pop up overnight. Sometimes they do pop up overnight, so they're not all just like, Dylan Cruz's, where they're like prodigies. You hear about them forever. Sometimes they pop up seemingly overnight, but they start here. They start on this podcast. And I do think that that for relief pitchers, it's something I've had to think about, because in our free agency in this 30-man league, relievers are going, like guys who have solidified jobs are going for a pretty penny, because there's 30 teams, and guess how many closers there are out there. So if you can get one that's elite, and a team like Cleveland Guardians are known for their pitching development, if they're going to groom this kid and if they're going to develop him up, then yeah, man, that's a good buy. And because he is a reliever, you might not have to pay too much in a draft for him.
To your point, if he comes into camp, if he gets a spring training invite, or even if he's placed at high A or double A, because he didn't pitch at the pro level this past year once he was drafted, from what I saw, he may be up in 2 months. I know that's not likely, but if they identify something in his profile, if he comes into camp and he's been working on a secondary pitch and they find a way to fine tune it and it's elite, he might not have the opportunity to get buzz. He might just be in the majors, and it might just be like, okay, whoever's lucky enough to check the waiver wire that day gets him, or it's a battle for fab and you're wasting fab because you didn't have the ability to watch our 4-hour episode tonight. This is a perfect point, Doc. This is the kind of guy you want to get right now. And if you drop him in a year, you drop him in a year.
Okay, so I'm going to make this real brief because we are running long a little bit. But one, I want to touch on, Doc, what you were saying about baseball IQ. I think it's a real thing. I mean, there's no doubt about it. I just don't trust it as a description. That's the difference. Like if I hear somebody say, well, he's a smart ball player. Well, how do you know? How do you know that? Like, don't trust, verify. That's kind of a process I try to live by. If I can't trust it, then I'm going to try to figure it out with what I do know I can trust, which is typically the numbers. And in Andrew Walter's case, the numbers are incredible. So shifting gears to talk about him specifically, my forte is not in trying to evaluate pitchers as much as it is with hitters, because I've just had less success there. I think it's less predictable for all the reasons that I've outlined what my approach is for hitters, because it doesn't work as well with pitchers. I know that to be true for me, but I know it's also a critical part of the game. But one thing I do love is hunting down relief pitchers. So this is where it gets interesting to me. So I'm glad that you've highlighted a couple of relievers, because I think it's often overlooked in fantasy. People are going for the starters. They're going to convert to a reliever maybe, but they're overlooking like the Craig Kimbrells as an example. This guy was just a reliever, just came in and was dominant in the minors, but nobody was paying any attention to him
Ryan
anyway.
Kirkering.
Who? Ryan Kirkering?
Kirkering.
Yes, absolutely. Agreed. Yeah, I mean, so they're out there, and just based on what I'm looking at here, I mean, these are sparkling numbers. So he has things to work on, and that's the context, and that's what makes pitching so much more challenging. But, I mean, he clearly knows how to pitch. He's got immaculate control, strikes people out. So he's just got to develop pitches that can miss major league bats, and, you know, he's got the rest ready to go from what I'm seeing.
Ross, you know, we had someone steal the attention off you as you were making some fantastic points. So for the viewers, you know, don't mind my little dog here. Ross's points were fantastic, and I agree with everything you said.
What do you got for name for the dog?
So her name is Nella, and she's taken after her father's personality. Very aggressive and very loving at times. But yeah, she thinks she's about 110 pounds, and she will go toe-to-toe with anything. So her father also has to be very protective because she does not realize she's 22 pounds and a very small creature.
That's awesome.
I will say one thing before moving on here regarding baseball IQ. Yeah, I mean, Ross, I know you're a smart guy. I know you got fantasy IQ. You know it matters. But no. So like, for example, how do you know it? That's I kind of like the reason I like that is because you can see a lot in the stats. You can find out all these sleepers. It's very useful. That's why we're here. Scout the stat line, not scout the IQ line. And but these scouts guys, these guys, it's easy to kind of rip on their rank sometimes because I don't know, maybe they're relying too much on just what they talk to, what they see. But I saw an interview from, I don't want to misplace this, but I want to say it was some kind of the Tool Shed guys maybe again. And they had an interview with Carson Williams. And this is one of those guys where you're like, what's all these strikeouts? Is he really that good? Like, I don't know. Why is he ranked so high? And you hear him talk. And you're like, okay. Yeah.
He'll figure it out.
Yeah, well, just like there's just so much going on there. He's a thinker's guy. You see some of these athletes, especially in other sports, they're just physical freaks. Like, yeah, man, I'm out there. I'm just doing what I can, man. It's like, okay, cool. And I love those guys too. Like maybe Brock Wilkins, that guy. I don't know. He's just a guy who slugs home runs. I don't know. I haven't heard him talk. Actually, I have heard Brock Wilkins talk. I'm remembering now, and he is that guy. He's just like a bro. I love him. And, but there's some guys where you can just tell they're very analytical with it. And hey, he said that. He said Junior Caminero. He said,
yep,
that guy is by far the best bat I've ever seen in my entire life. And this is Carson Williams, top 20 prospect by a lot of people's standards, saying that about someone else. So I think that's kind of like, it's just some things that we don't get access to. So it's nice to throw. It's nice icing on the cake, I'd say.
Well, and I think too, to your point, Doc, and I had mentioned this to Brian when we jumped on for kind of pre-introductions today and kind of just going over the outline. I by no means played any level of real competitive baseball. I played until I was 18. I played in a rec league that allowed us to play until we were 18, and it was not a great league, but we played. And when I had success is when I took a deep breath, I cleared my mind, and I went up there and I went through my mechanics. When I really pressed and I thought about, okay, what's coming, what's more likely, when my brain got involved, I failed almost always. And I think that's maybe what you were referencing with Williams. It's like these guys need to kind of take that intelligence and just calm themselves when they're going through the process and learn that their intelligence can be beneficial before the game and after the game. But when they walk onto the field, they've got to be relaxed and they've got to play fluid. And it took me into my adult years to realize that also translates into the real world as well. And sometimes the guys that do just go out there and, especially football, like tackle, it's easier because your brain's not getting in the way.
Yeah, me and Ross have talked about that point a lot. And I've brought it up with trades, and especially being from overseas or even in the DSL. When you're coming over, you have a language gap, and you come into LA and all of a sudden you're Shohei Ohtani. You have a language gap, and then you can perform on the field that well without your mind being okay. Like, you're a superstar. So now put that into a 17-year-old body from the DSL coming over, doesn't know the language. He's going up to Minnesota and he knows nobody. And you're putting a kid in there and he's trying to figure out baseball.
He's trying to listen to coaches.
That poor kid.
He's trying to gain camaraderie with teammates who can't understand him.
Yeah, that poor kid. He ain't got a chance.
Yeah,
give him a couple years span. That's where I, really preach patience on some prospects, especially during a trade.
Well, and Paulino Santana, one of the big international signings this year, I think his big takeaway is he's fluent in English. Yeah. That may help his development. That may see numbers that we wouldn't see from original signings right off the bat, because maybe those coaches can have that interaction and have that real takeaway right off the bat. Those are things I didn't even think about until looking at this international class. And you bringing it up now kind of re-solidifies that take. How do you make mechanical adjustments when you have that barrier? Maybe that's why we see guys at the DSL for 2-3 years, because they're really working on, okay, we have to get you at least to this point before we send you to A-ball.
Yeah. Anyways, as we've come through that,
so hard for me to not talk about Paulino Santana. I totally agree with that. Go on.
Let's try to get through these next 3 prospects.
We can fly
Matt
through
Morris's. And then maybe we're gonna have to do the other ones, me and Ross's, at another date. We are running on 2 hours right now, guys. So this next one is gonna be Landon Smith. Landon Smith is with the Single A affiliate with the Arizona Diamondbacks. He is 6'2", 227 pounds. He is age 23. He is out of Mississippi State. He was drafted in 2022 by the Diamondbacks, pick 34 overall. The stats do not show what Matt is going to try to personify, I guess. I guess that's the best word for it. Landon Smith's rookie and A-ball.
Okay, you said it 5 times. I'm cutting you off. Is Landon Sims?
No, I spelled it wrong. It's my fault. I spelled it wrong on the rundown. But yes,
okay.
It is Sims.
Okay, you're off the hook, Brian. It's Matt's fault. Landon Sims.
Did I apologize if I said it wrong. Landon Sims, SIMS, and his 2023 season looked as this: 3 different affiliates, 2 different rookie balls, 1 A-ball. His ERA was 5.47. His strikeouts were 28. Average was 247. Innings pitched was 24.2. K per 9 was 10.22. What do you see on Landon Sims?
So I wanted to pull it up really quick.
Do I got the wrong guy?
No, you almost said Smith again, though. You stopped
Sims.
yourself.
But you caught yourself.
Yeah.
So I absolutely wanted to bring in 2 polarizing profiles for these RPs that I brought in. I had some other names, but Sims is a guy that went through Tommy John. And I want to say it was right when he was drafted. So if one of you guys can confirm that for me, that would be awesome while I'm talking about him. Because his draft grades absolutely jumped off the page. His fastball coming out of the draft was a 70. His slider was also a 70 with a control of 55. And when you look at his Mississippi State numbers, you almost think to yourself, bring him up immediately, let him close games right now. And I think that could have happened had he not had Tommy John. In 2022 at Mississippi State, he had a 1.15 ERA. He had a total of 24 innings, if I am seeing that correct. No, 15.2 innings, 2 walks. So pure domination. Looking at even more innings caps for him in 2021, he had a total of 56.1 innings. That ERA was still amazing at 1.44. And in those 56 innings, he had 100 strikeouts. Those numbers are ridiculous. Now, his grades currently, as of February 2023, because Baseball America has not done their new scouting reports, they've dropped off because of the surgery. He did not come back after the arm injury, the same pitcher he was before. His new fastball grade is a 65. His new slider grade is a 60. His control is still at a 55. The reason I wanted to talk about him is because time and time again, we see that first season back from Tommy John just not be the season you expected it to be. It takes time still for some of these players after Tommy John. And I think what you could be buying right now is a better version of Walters that we just talked about. A 77 grade on 2 pitches is enough for me to believe that you can be a lockdown closer or at least a lockdown setup man. And when you look at Arizona's overall depth chart organizationally, they need that arm right now. So if he can find his control, if he can find a way to get closer to those 70 grades, we're talking about a guy that could be a huge producer for this team and a guy that we've said a lot tonight just isn't being talked about.
He throws hard. I just watched a couple of videos. He's a big net guy. And if that doesn't make any sense, it's ears to shoulder. And when he releases it, it's coming real freaking fast and real freaking hard. I'm trying to find when he.
It was so the article for BA right now for Baseball America has him listed at the article came out March 14th, 2022. Sims, to go under Tommy John, will miss the entirety of the season. So this season, 2023, was his first introduction post-surgery. So I listen, I'm a believer it takes a year. We just rarely see a guy come back as he was. By the time you hit year 2 and even sometimes year 3, how many times have we seen it where we're like, this guy's better than he was before? I don't want to say that, but I'm buying shares of him everywhere I can.
Yeah. I live by the rule of thumb. Give them a year to work out the rust, to figure out their arm, to feel comfortable again, to come back from a ACL is the way I like to put it, because everybody's afraid of their knees, right? When you tear an ACL, everybody's terrified to, do that one big jump off your knee to see where it comes from. Well, a Tommy John surgery is the same thing. Can I really unload this pitch and not hear that pop?
Well, and Arizona's got him in the total of the 2023 season. They've got him 13 games started to 15 total games. So it looks like they are trying to stretch him out and utilize his arm in the rotation.
Good.
I have concerns because the changeup's graded at a 45, but listen, 77, how often do we see that? I can't remember many pitchers coming out of college that had 2 elite pitches like that throw that hard and have those numbers.
I love it. I love the name. I love the name because of a relief pitcher. I don't scout them. I'm not good at scouting them. This is a great name. I think this is go get him, because Matt Morris is telling you that this is.
It's a great vote of confidence. I appreciate that.
Out of the bullpen. No, I'm being dead serious about that, Matt.
Well,
I just don't see that many relievers touted, and I love to see it.
Well, and I agree with everything you guys have said about pitching. It's very hard to gauge what these guys will be at the pro level. So I like to look at the relievers, or at least the relief profiles, because I think that's a little easier, right? Like 2 pitches in the bullpen can get it done. We've seen that from them all. It's easier to identify players that have done it before. So I try and stick with what will probably happen with starting pitchers. That's just so much harder.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting. I mean, you got first round pedigree, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not too long ago, 2022. And I'm going to be honest with you, Matt. I wanted to call you to make sure if you could get this guy, he was on your team. And I looked in our league, our 30-man league, and he's owned by somebody else.
I have tried, and I don't know what it is, Doc. I offer ridiculous packages for players that I like, and people just tell me that it's not enough. So that's just leagues. They just know me as the guy that's crazy, not necessarily that I do like to do this, as a hobby too. And it's unfortunate. I won't be able to get him in our league.
I see the similarities here with Walters from a number standpoint. Everything that you've said to me, it clearly didn't spook the teams from drafting him, even though he had Tommy John. So, yeah, he seems like a really good target. I mean, he's a relief pitcher, so pay relief pitcher prices, but he looks like he could be locked down for sure.
I don't know why Arizona decided to toss him into the starters role. Maybe they were using him as an opener. It's so hard to look at those game logs. But I didn't like to see that as we were talking. I hadn't noticed that, so that was kind of a mistake on my part.
Well, you can tell that. I mean, either that or he's getting blown up in this at A ball. But yeah, 7 stars at A and only played 15 innings, pitched 15 innings.
Yeah.
No, he had to be doing some opening. No, I'm looking at his rookie ball.
2 innings a game. That's
okay.
It's got 2 starts for 3 innings, and it's 0 earned runs, so he wasn't getting blown up. So there's something going on here. I think he's still
a lot of teams are doing that now, where it's hard to read the quality of the game started because they are just throwing random guys in, and they're playing 5 guys a night because that's the organizational model and mentality.
Interesting.
Yeah. Good one.
So I want to jump into the next one, guys. I want to keep this moving a little bit, but our next one is going to be Mr. Johnny Farmello. Mr. Johnny Farmello, I got to know, Matt Morris, what are you looking at here? Because I can't find
anything. I know.
Anything on He's 19 years old. I know that. He's 6'2", 205 pounds.
I trust the Mariners. I don't trust what they just did yesterday, and I'm very unhappy about that. But this show is not about covering that trade. Yeah. I was very, very mad about that deal. But Farmello being a first-round pick or a first-round comp pick, I forget exactly where he went. He want to say he went late 20s with the 2 or 3 picks. The Mariners, 29. Thank you. Didn't get any playing time. So we got to look at Ty P. We got to look at Colt Emerson, guys that, I love. We all like Emerson a lot, especially the model. Goodness. And it's like, well, what happened to Farmello? They used a really high pick on him, and I couldn't find the data, just like you said. So I went and I looked at his scout grades because I was like, okay, well, they had to have decided on choosing him for a reason. You see the other profiles and you see a lot of upside. He got a 45 power with a 55 hit tool, a 70 run, a 55 field, and a 55 arm. I didn't get to see if there was an injury designation that kept him out of playing in any complex or A-ball games, but I wanted to bring him up because no one is talking about him, and he's dropping in first-year player drafts because there's no data. And I just see those overall grades, and I think to myself, maybe this is Christian Yelich. We have no data to back it up, but Christian Yelich, coming out of high school, same thing with Farmello, was a good runner, a good fielder, a field a hit, and maybe projectable power because of the body size. Farmello's 6'1", there's a little bit of leverage there. I want to take an absolute gamble on him in a few first-year player drafts after that certain threshold hits where you're like, okay, I'm just throwing darts at a board, because I think we could get a really good baseball player. And up until yesterday, I fully trusted the Mariners.
Well, I think what that could also, the Mariners. I was just gonna say the Mariners were running with these trades from a fantasy perspective. Maybe we don't look at log jams with them like we normally would, because Gabriel Gonzalez just got out, and then maybe this Windish guy, maybe they send him off pack and stuff, maybe Johnny. You never know, if you're behind someone, the Mariners they're making, say what you will about the trades, they're making a lot of them. So it's another way to look at it. Ross, what you were saying?
So, I don't have much to say as a data maximalist sort of guy. I would be using my picks somewhere else, just because I'd rather go with something I feel or I see as more of a certainty. But I see what you're getting at, and you're right. The Mariners sure have smashed the draft, so they're probably onto something here. To me, you said it. It's a gamble. Yep. And it's absolutely true that sometimes I will miss out on players due to my aversion to gambling on things kind of like that. So, yeah, it's an interesting one.
Well, I put him on the list because I didn't know anything about him. I had no data, and that really intrigued me. Like, he could be a guy next year if he comes out of the gate and plays maybe like Colt played, where it's like, oh my gosh, could you imagine if you had gotten him in, January or February, and you would be like, wow, I passed on him for maybe an international signing in the 3rd round of my first-year player draft. But Ross, I do agree with you. There are safer options. It really, again, back to value. If he's sitting there with a bunch of other question marks, he was a first-round pick with Colt Emerson and Ty Pete, who Pete hasn't shown what he can do yet, but I believe in him. I can't imagine that he's not going to come out and at least show really nice skills. And the 70 run at the worst case, maybe get some stolen bases. But first-round picks are guys I like to target, and he's falling and falling hard.
So he's got to be falling hard because there's no information on it. But I love that you brought that up. He's drafted in the first round. They're obviously putting him under a shell until he can figure it out. Whether that be it's got to be a complex league, right? They had to have stuffed him away, and it just trained all year long, right? Because there is no stats.
Well, they did that with Andrew Jones' son, Drew Jones, right? They brought him back to complex to rework the swing, which is the last thing any of us wanted to hear. That's like developmental 101. But I didn't do enough early research on what actually happened with Farmelo's tracking last year. So maybe I have to imagine you're right. He was in the organization, so probably working down there.
Yeah, and I want to link him to a Detroit Tiger that I was huge upon for like 3 years. I'm a big Tigers fan. Roberto Campos.
Oh.
And that's exactly how I'm linking this right now. They're just hiding him until he's ready to come out. And Roberto Campos is doing some good things. I just expected more. And that's what I would do with this profile is I would expect more. That's what I got.
So I think that with a pick like this, maybe not this high in like an FYPD, we're talking about the first few rounds, but I might be looking more towards a guy like a Caleb Durbin at this point. Like that's where I would be kind of diverting my attention. Okay, so I can't get a guy that I feel like is a smash success. I'm going to look towards guys that are maybe overlooked out there, that have some data that I can leech onto. That's where my mind goes. But to each their own. So you might have a smashing success with a Farmelo guy, picking him in the second or third round, even fourth round. Who knows?
Yeah, I'm seeing here he went 49th. He went 2.19 in our.
I feel like that's decent. I don't know. Is it? What do you think? Is that good?
That's weird. That guy's in on him. I don't know. He's a Mariners fan. I don't know. But I was looking up on him a little bit. It looks like he joined the development team for a playoff run. It's probably why we're not seeing his stats there. Modesto. But yeah, apparently he's really fast. I'm seeing he's actually 6'2". Grew up a little bit, but he's 6'2". He's speed and contact is what you're going for, and they're hoping for some more power. So it's actually I mean, you're getting a fast outfield. You're getting a kid. You're getting a high school kid, right? And the organization's doing great. It's kind of weird. There's such a weird. I don't know what to think about the Mariners. Just when I was ready to compliment them, they're just making all these weird moves. Must be penny pinching or something. I don't know, but they seem like they have tons of prospects I love. And I just don't know. They don't seem like they're ready to use them.
It's an interesting swing too. I found a video of him at the Mariners' home stadium where they bring the draft picks in, right, a couple days after they've signed, and they showcase them to the fans and obviously get them comfortable with, this is what you're ultimately working towards, and then we're going to send you down and start that development path. I'll post it in our chat here, and those that are interested, you can probably just Google type in his name on Twitter and find it. But it's an interesting swing, and maybe that's why they kept him at the developmental league. I love what it looks like while it's going through the zone, but the way he starts is very interesting. But listen, again, Doc, you said it. Mariners player, I'll buy.
Beautiful. Okay, let's move on to our next one. This is going to be our last one for the night. I apologize. We're going to have to do this as a two-part segment. But our next one is going to be your Fran Medina. Your Fran Medina is with the rookie affiliate with the Los Angeles Dodgers. He is 6'4", 195 pounds. He is age 19. to Doc's point, maybe he's age 19. We'll see. What we have so far, 2022, he had 72 at bats. 2023, he had 63 at bats. Both of these are in the DSL numbers. Overall, in the minors, 222 average, 429 on base slugging, 474 on base plus slugging of 903. Now, I want to point this out because he has an on base plus slugging of 903 with an average of 2.22 or 0.222. So that's 7 home runs, 2 stolen bases, 11 doubles, 1 triple. How do you get to an on-base plus slugging of 900 and have an average of 2.22?
Yeah, and I want to get Ross's perspective on Medina because there was an account that posted some numbers last night that you followed it up with a comment, and I've liked Medina this year. I stumbled across him when I did the Dodgers organization breakdown, and again, much like the Mariners, I absolutely love anything the Dodgers do. If we look at Yohendry Vargas and his production this year in the DSL. The names can go on and on. They had signed O'Neal Cruz. They had Yordan Alvarez in the organization originally. They do a really great job at identifying talent. And when I broke down Medina's numbers, it was really the transition to plate approach he made in 2023 in comparison to 2022. 2022, he had 6 walks to 26 strikeouts, not numbers that we like to look at when we're looking at those key ratios of plate discipline and zone contact. But 2023 saw 24 walks to 22 strikeouts, an immense turnaround. Now, we saw those numbers with Brock Wilken at Wake Forest. DSL is obviously much lower competition than even Division I college baseball, but in 63 at-bats, 5 home runs, he is projecting to be a player that is learning the game, that is developing his skill set, while also providing what I would consider to be plus power, even at the DSL in those 63 at-bats. And again, he's a Dodger. So he's a name that in most leagues you can pick up. Couple deeper leagues, you might have to do one of those value trades. But this is absolutely the guy I want at the very bottom of my depth chart because he could really explode. And when he explodes, I think it will be almost unacquirable. We saw that with Samuel Basallo. I don't want to put those expectations out there, but he has the track of developing into a very good prospect, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I knew nothing about him. Like I said, I kind of hinted at it before. I often, I'm like, I'm probably going to be the last of some of these Dominican kids, but man, I love that though. That's exactly what you want to see. Is when those strikeouts in the DSL, you're like, no, I'm out. And then immediately to have to switch around to have more walks and strikeouts. I love to see it. He's interesting. He's tall. Yeah, hopefully he is the age he says he is.
Well, and Docky, his birthday is 2 days before ours, so we have to like him.
Matt Morris and I share the same birthday. Yeah, we just turned the same age over the weekend. Well, not the same age, but we hit the same day. Anyway, I think I do believe that he is this age, that he's 19, because he's 6'4". He's listed at 6'4", 195. He might have already gotten bigger than that, and I don't know much about this guy, but I do know this: the Dodgers seem to have completely abandoned him in the outfield. From a 17-year-old, in 2022, he was playing the outfield, and then some first base. This year, an 18-year-old, he played first base exclusively with a little bit of DHing. So either they're looking at him and they know his dad or something. You never know how deep the scouting goes. Yeah. They're like, this guy's gonna get bigger. No, you're already moving like a first baseman. We're putting you there. So I would, with that in mind, probably don't expect that 1 stolen base per year to go up too much. Right. But that's interesting. I don't know. I think I got a sweet spot. I'm my old school. I don't know. I've said this before. I like the sluggers because at least you know what you're getting. You don't have to worry about what happens if the speed goes away. Like with Brock Wilken, I'm like, no. Like I know I'm getting this guy. I'm getting something in this wheelhouse. With a guy like this, I mean, you're seeing some power on display. 5 home runs in 30 games. That's not nothing. and for him to have that on base ability starting to show, you know what, he's available in our 30 team.
Don't do it, Doc. Don't do it to me.
My farm's too stacked.
You got the #1 waiver wire. Don't burn me like that.
Yeah, okay. I just outed him. I don't have room for him. I got Caleb Durbin.
We're gonna have 27 waiver claims on him.
all right, man. Yeah, for value perspective though, I'm literally getting sold as I'm talking about him, and he's available in 30 team leagues on the waiver wire. So,
Ross, what do you got on him?
So you're spot on. I like the analysis. I mean, worth pointing out, in 2023 he had a 538 OBP. That's pretty anomalous, right? You're not going to find that anywhere, any level really. I mean, unless you're Barry Bonds, you're not getting that much. So that's intriguing. It's DSL, so I'm gonna go fall back on my same old refrain. Like, the predictability of DSL to stateside stats is, I mean, it's almost a crapshoot. I mean, there is a little bit of a predictability there, but it's much lower than moving from low levels of stateside play to high levels to the major leagues. It's just a different ball game. So I'm not sure there. 18 in the DSL adds another element to it that I don't love. That's not young for the DSL. It's not necessarily old either, but I haven't seen a lot of guys that are coming out 18 in the DSL coming and smashing, say, stateside. So he's got a couple factors going against him. The third one is sample size, right? So now over 2 years, we've got 189 plate appearances, 106 last year. Just need to see more. Need to see it in the States. Need to see it a little bit closer for me. And maybe it's worth a flyer in your deep 30 team league. But for me, in a 20 team league, somewhere around there, he's going on a watch list, and that's about it right now.
Yeah, and I agree. If you can just keep a name on an eye on the name. You know, we talked about Kevin Hidalgo a little bit earlier. Same thing. Ross, we had touched on Jeffrey Rosa months ago, right? All DSL guys. Just names to know, because when they pop, and you got to pick them up that week that they're exploding at A-ball.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And sometimes these guys just turn out to be stars. I mean, it happens. But even the ones that turn out to be the biggest stars aren't necessarily the biggest shiners in the DSL, right? The biggest names I can think of coming up in the DSL are like an Alexander Mojica, from a stat perspective. But the biggest stars coming up from the DSL were like Julio Rodriguez, So it's a totally different ball game. You can't predict that Mojica was going to fall on his face, and you could probably have predicted Julio Rodriguez was going to be a star, but would you have been able to look at the numbers and predict how it was going to turn out for Mojica? I don't think so. So
I'm going to be honest, Ross. I don't even know who Alexander Mojica is, and that's a great reference point, because I like to think I know most names, but that doesn't even ring a bell for me. And you speak highly of the numbers and the output he did.
It was awesome.
Yeah. I'm going on a rabbit hole right now, guys.
Here we go. I just sent you his BREF page. Check out his DSL days.
Guys, with that,
16 years old.
We just went through about 8 prospects that are brutally low on everybody's charts. We have 8 more. We have 8 more that we have to get into. And I apologize. It's going to have to be another segment, because we did.
We had too much fun.
We had too much fun, guys. Yeah,
and we're talking to each other, and it's exciting. We love it.
We're here to
entertain.
It's going
to have to be a part 2. This is going to be. That's what I'm excited about. This is going to be the first part 2 of the STS Statliners Bats and Stats podcast.
We have a celebratory dog over here. You're not seeing it, but she's clapping for us.
She's super excited.
This is a big event.
Nice.
Yeah, it's about
With
one
that, guys.
Eastern time. So I'm excited with that news.
Yeah. With that, guys, we are done for the evening, but we are going to be back next Tuesday. We'll talk to you soon.
All right. See you guys.
That was a lot of fun.